Welcome to another edition of Brawl the Lions UK podcast, episode 108, Counting Kneecaps. My name's Matthew Turner, alongside my co-host Anthony Fitzpatrick, Ryan McCluskey off screen, and Ryan Farden to come in a moment. How you doing, Ant?
I'm doing good, thanks. I'm just laughing at the rest of the panel who are acting like Dak yesterday and just arriving just a few seconds too late.
Or anonymous, or not doing enough, I guess.
Or getting screwed by a referee. I don't know. I hope you're all right there, Grind.
Oh, that was funny as hell. But let's be fair, San Francisco let them back into that game multiple times. That game was dead in the water with 15 minutes to go.
Oh, don't you just love to see it though? You know, the sort of the hopes of the Cowboys sort of relit, and they're just starting to think they can do it, just to get crushed right at the very end. It was so damn sweet. It's like 2014 has now been avenged slightly. They know what it's like to get screwed by an officiating crew.
How you doing, Ryan? You right, man?
Yeah, I'm good, yeah. I'm all set up now.
Did you enjoy the game yesterday, the Cowboys game? Because it was satisfying for me.
No. It was a poor watch from start to finish, and I'm well over 2014, I don't care. The refs didn't screw, the Cowboys did. The awful play calling did. I don't think the refs had anything to do with it, to be honest.
The thing is, if you call a quarterback draw, I don't think it's the worst play in the world. He ran too far. Like, they gave him room to kind of, like, hang himself. If he'd slid 2 seconds before, they'd have got that play off. So,
I'm not convinced that they got a spike in. I think it was a terrible design play. You should have just taken a shot at the end zone. Like, I question Kellen Moore now. I think questions have suddenly raised about him. The luster of the future head coach job, like the shine has definitely been taken off him. And Mike McCarthy, he's not safe. I don't think anyone is safe in Dallas, even after 12-6 year. I could see him get fired.
It's going to be the first question in every Kellen Moore interview now, isn't it? It's like, what the hell were you thinking?
And yet I've seen people around the league speculate that Mike McCarthy is going to get sacked, so they managed to retain Kellen Moore.
I can see him getting promoted if they offer him the job.
I saw something about 20 minutes ago saying he's safe and they've got no intention of replacing him. I don't think he'll leave. I don't think they'll move. He's only his second year, isn't it?
Yeah, it would be a pretty big first year.
Well, they did, and a bad call this year, but they had the best offense in the NFL. Defense is getting there, so he's done something right with him. We just can't get him over the hump in the playoffs.
Yeah. How you doing, Ryan?
I'm good, thank you, mate. How are you? How are you boys? You okay?
Yeah.
All the happier for hearing that. Watching the Cowboys go out last night. That was the highlight of the weekend. To be brutally honest, I can't stand that franchise.
Woe betide the zebras for the Cowboys.
It was just nice to get a close game. This weekend has been atrocious for the wild card because there's just been blowouts all over the place. At least it was good to get one that was slightly controversial and slightly a bit closer, but the rest of them were terrible.
I thought the Bengals was okay. I thought it was a decent game to watch.
Well, the Zebras messed up in that one as well, didn't they? It's universal around the league.
Yeah.
Pandemic.
Yeah, it is. Right. Let's crack on with this. We're going to go through a bit of news. We're going to review the 2021 Detroit Lions season, and we're going to go through some of the awards and the nominations for those awards, which are already decided for next week. Some are going to be locked in. Some are still up for grabs in the next couple of days before I've got to make the graphics and get it out on social media. So we'll just start off by talking about our Discord channel. It's very lively at the moment as we're coming into draft season. You want to be a part of that. So DM us on Twitter, or you can email us on our YouTube channel, or the email address is on the YouTube channel if you want to be a part of that, or I'll send out a link shortly as well on Twitter. Don't forget the College Football Podcast, which is on a brief hiatus at the moment, I think, boys, or are we having another one shortly?
We need to talk about what we're going to do, I think. So it's just trying to figure out with all the draft stuff coming up at the minute, but it'll be back soon enough. We just need to have a chat about what we're going to do.
Absolutely. I mean, there's going to be so much to talk about in the coming days and weeks and months with the Lions Super Bowl just around the corner. Don't forget to like and sub to the podcast. If you can rate and review us on Spotify, on Apple, that'd be much appreciated. Anything you can do for us for that is amazing. And Lions Nation Unite, don't forget that too. The best place to go and find all your Lions content. Right, let's kick off with some news. And there's a lot of it, so let me just crack on. The Lions have signed 10 players to Futures reserve contracts. Almost all of them practice squad members, I believe. All of them practice squad members. Defensive end Eric Banks, linebacker Tavonte Beckett, defensive end Bruce Hector, wide receiver Javon McKinley, quarterback Stephen Montez, cornerbacks Parnell Motley and Savion Smith, offensive tackle Dan Skipper, tight ends Shane Zylstra and Matt Sokol, who was here last year and has come back now. The Lions have also claimed safety Juju Hughes off waivers from the Rams, and God, I bet they wish they had a safety now for tonight. The Lions have released 6 players from the practice squad, so that is wide receiver Geronimo Allison, tight end Nick Eubanks and Ross Travis, offensive tackle Darren Paolo, but I'm sure he'll be back, offensive guard Parker Ehinger, I'll get that right sometime, and cornerback Nicole Rolby Coleman. That's all of the roster moves, boys. Any surprises? Anyone you're happy that have gone or happy that's staying for the next season?
Not particularly.
I don't expect many of them will be here. They're on future reserve contracts, but I'm not guaranteed half of them will be here next year. I can still see at least half of them being cut. Some of them will make the practice squad, but I'll be surprised if any of them make the active roster next season, because I don't think any of them got called up from the practice squad this year, even likes of Montez when we had quarterback injuries. So they're definitely developmental guys that will only be called upon in case of dire emergency, but no surprises.
I don't know. I think a lot of them did actually. Beckett played, Hector played. I think Motley, Skipper, Smith, Zylstra, they all played. I think the fact is, I think they're gonna just they're gonna run the rule over them a bit during the opening OTAs and that, aren't they? See if there's anything more they can work with. But I guess it's a good sign. They've been on the squad all year and they've wanted to keep them, so it must mean they've shown at least a little bit of something that they might be able to work with. So yeah, as Ryan says, there's probably not going to be a great deal of them here come opening day next year, but possibility that there are some guys in there who might surprise us. Learn not to be surprised by now with these guys. They've managed to develop so many guys at this point in time that, you never know where the next one's going to come from.
We can't get rid of Dan Skipper, God.
I could see Stephen Montez parlaying his way into quarterback 3. I mean, he's been here all season and he's shown his value because the Lions continue to show up against mobile quarterbacks. And I think part of that is being prepared well for game day. So I could see him getting his way onto an active roster or as a practice squad member as quarterback 3.
Well, 2 and 3 are both free agents this year, so you've got to pay them both. So I guess it might come down to a financial thing, especially with 3, because, if you're paying Boyle again, which I don't think they will, but, you've got to keep your costs down somewhere. Quarterback's probably the one place they'll try. So there could be a good chance he is there.
All right, let's move on. The Denver Broncos have completed a head coaching interview with the Lions defensive coordinator, Aaron Glenn. How are we feeling on that, boys? I know there's a few trepidations and nerves about that. Ryan Farden, what do you reckon, man?
What do I reckon? Well, obviously, I don't think he's going anywhere just yet. While he had a very good season, it was definitely, done an amazing job with lots of players there. People that weren't even household names. At the start of the season, he's definitely going to be a head coach of the future. I think everyone will agree on that. But he just needs to keep on adding to his resume with the Lions right now. And I'll be very surprised if he actually ends up landing a job this year. But it's great in a way because it shows that we're doing something right. If you're getting a great team, and a great defensive team like the Denver Broncos, looking at our guy, but I think they're going to have to go offense, aren't they, this time around? So. If you fire Vic Fangio, I'd be surprised if you go for a lesser known defensive coach in our guy. So I'd be surprised.
Yeah, there's no way he's going there. I think there's far too many, more experienced coordinators out there with a better body of work than him so far. As much as I love what he's done here, you've got the two Bucks guys who have both won Super Bowls there. You've got the Bills coordinators. You've got all sorts around the league at the minute. So I just think it's not his time. This time next year, we should be worried for absolute sure. But I think the expectation was always going to be 2 years. And I don't think he's going to have hopped in the front of the queue amongst some of these far more experienced guys at coordinator so far. So I think we can rest easy.
Yeah, he's not going anywhere. He was interviewed first for a reason. They're never going to take the first guy. I think it's just nice to hear he's getting interviews, but he's not going anywhere anytime soon this year or next year, unless we go have a huge turnaround. I think he should be here for maybe 2 years at least.
God, I can't remember who was the last defensive coordinator that we had. I can picture him, but I can't think of his name. And he got
Pasqualoni, was it?
No, not him. He actually got a job interview, and he got interviewed, I think, after we fired Caldwell as well.
Yeah, I know the guy you're talking about.
Where is he now? I have no idea where he even is right now. So it'd be interesting to remember his name, but I can't remember off the top of my head right now.
Was that the useless idiot from the Eagles?
No,
I think it was one of that guy who took the Eagles.
That's a pretty wide-ranging view there, Ryan. That could encompass a lot of people.
Couldn't it? Really
I think you mean Terrell Austin.
That's it, Terrell Austin. I think he went to Baltimore or something like that for a little bit. But yeah, Terrell Austin. Yeah, whatever happened to him, man?
He is an assistant defensive and secondary coach for the Pittsburgh Steelers, apparently. But yeah, he got several head coaching chances at interview, so I'm surprised he's dropped so low. But there we go. Right. On Aaron Glenn, I've heard a load of people say, well, at least we'll get some comp picks if he goes. No, we won't. You have to complete 2 full years before you are eligible for those comp picks. He's only done 1 here. If he leaves after this amount of time, the Lions have not developed him enough to get the 2 comp picks you get for hiring a minority candidate. So that's not happening this time around. So if that's what you're after, you're hoping that he at least stays for 1 more season. Moving on with the next part of the news, couple of awards news. Firstly, a huge social media effort has seen Amon-Ra St. Brown finally win the final Rookie of the Week of the regular season over Trevor Lawrence, who easily had his best week as a pro, Trevor Lawrence. He came out and actually won the game for the Jags and looked good doing it. But Amon-Ra's just been so consistent. I think that got him over the line. But not after you saw every major Lions outlet out there trying to really push this hard, boys. And it got him there. It's great news.
We earned it.
Without social media, he wouldn't have won it. It was only the huge push, I feel, because he'd not won 4 of the last 5. So finally, people decided he's got to get at least 1. So people clubbed together, didn't they?
I mean, these awards seem really devalued at the point where you can just vote all the time for them. It just feels a bit pointless at the end of the day, but because it's not really a true reflection of anything when you've got people voting 100, 200 times themselves. But if he deserves it, he deserves it. This last half of the year has just been amazing for him. So good on him.
All right. The second award was that Tracy Walker won NFC Defensive Player of the Week. And I know with a very final pick, potentially, of his Lions career, he got his first interception of the year. I didn't think that he had a terrifically amazing game that day, bar that pick. I thought he was good. I'm not trying to say he wasn't great. It surprised me that he won this award. I don't know about you guys. I mean, we beat Green Bay. That's going to be part of it, sure, but it surprised me.
Stats come a lot into these things. I don't think they're necessarily taken on who deserves them the most, just because, he got a pick there, it won the game, it suddenly elevates him up, even if he's not had a very good game. I mean, the best example was a few weeks ago when, I think it was Cameron Haywood won it, when Charles Harris had his absolutely amazing week, harassing Kyler Murray, I think it was, and was by far the best defensive player in the league by a mile. But I think because Haywood had got a pick, they gave it to him for the second week in a row. So I don't think it's one of those things that's necessarily given to the most deserving of players. But again, you can't fault him. He's had a really good year again. So it's nice for him to end it on a high, and it's going to be really interesting to see what we do with him now.
If your safety has 13 tackles, that just means everyone else played poorly. So Stats won in the award. The linebackers were dreadful. So he made the most tackles that weekend. So it was nice for him to get it. Might have got him a bonus too. Who knows?
True.
I read it was the first time since 2011 the Lions had a special teamer, a defensive, and an offensive winner in the same year. A decade. That's how long it's taken.
Shocking, isn't it?
It's nice. It's nice.
Shocking. Also, the Lions did not receive an All-Pro vote this year. I mean, I think we maybe held out a bit of hope that Jack Fox might at least get one. And considering, I think, was it 7 or 8 different punters got All-Pro votes. The fact that he wasn't up there, despite the fact he had the second or third best gross punting average, and that was the second time in a row he'd achieved that feat. Like, his consistency is off the chart, and it's a shocking oversight for me. Like, as much as MVP is kind of mandated by your team has a good season, I kind of feel like punter of the year, kicker of the year, is very much determined by how bad your team is. Like, if you have to punt a lot and you punt well, that should be worth more than someone not punting very much. Like, I just don't get it. Like, we've been bad. Jack Fox has punted a lot. He's pulled off a few trick plays excellently. Like, what does the guy have to do?
Hell, I mean, he's not punted anywhere near as much as he could have done with all our fourth down trickery. I think he's probably had a down year compared to last year in terms of the amount of times he's hit it. But yeah, it just goes to show we're an unfashionable team. But I guarantee this time in 12 months we'll be having All-Pro votes. I can guarantee you that one now.
What he needs to do is leave the Lions. The Lions, they don't get All-Pro votes, unfortunately, do they? If he played anywhere else to get the vote, I guarantee it.
Just having a look, he had 6 more punts this year, but there was an extra game. So I'm just trying to work out an average. 59 punts in 2020 in 16 games is just less than 4 punts per game. So he had more punts on average this season than last season. His average went up by 0.1 yards per punt. I think he's absolutely cracking player. Anyway, we'll move on. The Lions are coaching at Senior Bowl, as we all know, and the players that are going to be there are being revealed. Now, the Lions assistant coaches are going to be the ones who are coaching in the Senior Bowl. This was a rule change which was announced fairly recently. But it's all the assistants that are taking the senior roles, and all of the senior guys are taking advisory roles. So it's going to help our conveyor belt of coaches kind of take the next steps in their development. So you've got Deuce Staley, the deputy head coach, becoming the head coach for this game. Aubrey Pleasant, the secondary coach, is going to become the defensive coordinator. The guy who's going to be the offensive coordinator hasn't yet been revealed. If it's not Ben Johnson, I'm going to be very surprised. If we have a look at the players that have been announced so far, the Lions at quarterback are going to have Malik Willis, Sam Howell, and Bailey Zappi. And we know that Malik Willis and Bailey Zappi were specifically requested by the Lions, which is interesting, I think, and noteworthy. In terms of the wide receivers and the tight ends, we have Calvin Austin, Dontario Drummond, Danny Gray, Reggie Robertson, Velus Jones, Trey Turner, Jalen Talbot. And then tight ends, we have Daniel Bellinger, Grant Calcaterra, Greg Dulwich, Isaiah Likely, and then do we have any more? We have offensive line as well, don't we? Which I don't have loaded.
There's a load of them. There's loads of O-line guys.
Oh yeah, there's 11 O-line guys, so I won't read them all out. But any takeaways from the Senior Bowl, guys? Are you surprised that it's Zappi and Willis that they've decided they want to have a look at, or is it maybe informing us as to where they're considering taking a quarterback in the draft, perhaps?
I don't want to touch Willis with a barge pole, so that worries me.
To me, it seems like they've gone after the guys who need development. They're not looking at the guys who are automatically going to walk into this team and be starters, which would fall into the narrative that Goff is the guy next year. If they're going to go for a quarterback, they're going to go for a guy who they think has the experience to maybe take over a few years down the line, but nothing now. But, you know, if people look through, if people want to learn about it a little bit more, if you go back to our last college podcast we did, me and Ryan went through the Senior Bowl roster. So we'll probably have made some notes in there about some of the guys we've got if you want to have a little look further. But, there's a few good players that we've got on our on roster this year. It's going to be very intriguing to see if we get them. But I can guarantee I think we'll draft at least a couple of them.
All right, so that's the Senior Bowl. That is on the game itself, I think, is the week before the Super Bowl, 6th of February. Is that right? It's around about the Pro Bowl.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously, I mean, the bowl game itself is actually not that interesting, but the practices and the time that the coaches have with the players, massively so. So really looking forward to that. I know that Detroit Lions podcast are going to be there and have extended coverage of it, so you'll want to check them out, as I am going to do, because that's going to be really, really interesting. Let's move on and talk about the season in review. So I'm going to take it 4 games at a time, and I'll finish with 5, just briefly talking about each game, and then we're going to break down position group by position group how we think maybe those players have done in particular. So I'm going to start off with an overall. The Lions finished 3-13-1. That got them the number 2 pick in the NFL draft. However, the expected wins per Pro Football Reference were 5.1, and Football Outsiders had it at 4.7. So this team, and we know it intrinsically from the number of walk-off field goals we had to suffer, we know that this team was particularly unlucky down the stretch, and that just backs that up entirely. It seems like a long time ago now, but the Lions started off at home against the San Francisco 49ers, went down 41-33. The Lions were actually down in this game. Despite only losing by 8, they were down 28 points late before a late comeback, and then we were 16 points down with 2 minutes to go. We scored a touchdown, a 2-point conversion to get to within a score, and then recovered the onside kick to give us some hope before flaming out late, which was maybe the most crazy run of the entire season in Game 1. Game 2, we lost at Green Bay, 35-17. The Lions actually ran out to a 17-14 lead at halftime before slumping to defeat, conceding 21 straight points in the second half. Game 3 was that infamous game at home against the Baltimore Ravens, losing 19-17. The Lions were down 10-0 at halftime before leading 17-16 with a minute to play. Help from the refs allows Justin Tucker to hit an NFL long kick of 66 yards to win off the crossbar. And then finally, to round out this quarter of the season, the Lions lose away against the Chicago Bears 24-14, down 14-0 at halftime, get back to 24-14 with 11 minutes left, but were not able to progress from there and really never looked in the game even when they were starting to come back. They round off that course of the season 0-4, and it was disappointing, I know it was, but we came into this going, that's a rough start, and they gave the 49ers a bit of a fright late coming back into that. They led Green Bay at the half, but took the rest to help Baltimore win that game. The only really disappointing one, I guess, was the Bears, and at this point in the season, I was fearing the worst, but also looking there thinking, but it's not as bad as I thought it could have been. I don't know how you guys felt at this point.
From what I remember, I think that we all kind of said that this was going to be a really tough start to the season, and no one was going to be surprised if we were literally 0-5. So, obviously, I remember the second quarter of the 49ers game, like you said, we were just atrocious. It all just went to pot. And then, a decent fight back to try and get back in it. But realistically, we should never have got anything out of that game anyway. Green Bay, great start again. Really positive. And then just capitulated. I think Goff turned it over a couple of times as well. Just shot ourselves in the foot again. So it was a tough start to the season. And like you say, the most frustrating one was definitely the Bears, because we just thought that, we could build off of the Baltimore Ravens game where we were exceptionally unlucky. And instead, it just went to shit that day. And then, obviously, you're concerned about the way things were going to go from there, realistically. So, it was a rough start to the season, definitely. And obviously, it continued to get rougher. But, at least there was signs of life and signs of positivity, even in those dark days of starting 0-4.
I'll go next. It was rough. It was an ugly start. Like, for me, the most disappointing game was Baltimore because we should have won it. The situational downs at the end of that fourth quarter, it just wasn't good enough at times. Like I say, we can blame the refs, but we were at major fault for our own. The San Fran game, there was a lot of garbage time, stat padding. We fell behind too quickly. They handed our asses to us pretty quickly. Green Bay looked good for a half, and then, well, pardon my French, shit the bed in the second half. That was really annoying. But it didn't surprise me. That was when we all hated Goff. And then the Bears, even for like a short game, we were never really in it. We couldn't stop the run. I think it was Jordan Howard that just mauled us, and they were chipping, dunking down the field. And I expected to be 1-3 at worst, so I was disappointed with the start. We'd conceded a lot of points. We saw the fragility of the defense. We saw the odd spark on offense. We saw the basis of a run game, which was probably the best thing of the 0-4. We could pound the ball. Offensive line was fairly healthy at that time. So there was some units that were looking like they had life in them.
I think I agree with Ryan on this one. I think it was very disappointing. And I think for a lot of us, it was a call to reality because we started the season and we thought, maybe this isn't going to be as bad as we've all been led to believe it is. Maybe there's going to be some hope there early. But I think it reinforced that there were a lot of problems with this team. There was a lack of experience in there, not so many senior guys playing at the top of the game. We'd already had injuries to start this season off, which wore us down early. And I mean, looking back at the start, obviously we're looking back at it, we're reviewing the season from here. You can really begin to see where the reign of Anthony Lynn as offensive coordinator never started. In those first 4 games, we had 3 halves where we didn't score a single point. We didn't score in the second half against the Packers. We didn't score in the first half against the Ravens. We didn't score in the first half against the Bears, I believe. And I mean, for 3 halves of football in 4 games to not be able to score, I mean, at the time, I remember saying, oh, hang on, you know what? Actually, I think Anthony Lynn's doing quite well here because he's making some adjustments in games. There's times where we look unbeatable and we're playing really well. But looking back on it, it was, oh, wait, no, he was unable to influence a game for so long. He was not able to call the plays right. He put us in some really bad situations. Even then, the defense was showing signs of promise, which we never thought we were going to see from it. But offensively, we just looked so stale and terrible. And we came into this season saying that the offense has got the least areas to fix. We need a receiver. Maybe we need a quarterback. We don't know, but it just looked so goddamn awful. Whereas the defense looked really good. So, I'm with Ryan. It was a really disappointing first 4 games, but amongst the doom and gloom, you did see the fighting spirit of the team there. That Ravens game, everyone thought we were going to get wiped away. We didn't. Against the Packers, we went toe-to-toe for them for quite some time, looking really good. I think it was one drive in the third quarter that really did it for us. It was a momentum switcher, but, you saw these young guys really hanging tough with guys who were a lot better than them, quite frankly. So I think it's kind of a microcosm of the season. You could see the effect that DC was having, but you could see also what was hindering this team, which was the previous regime and the shit show it left behind and the deficiencies we had because of all the money we didn't have and the lack of special players we didn't have.
Yeah, absolutely. And moving in now to the second quarter of the season, Game 5, loss at the Minnesota Vikings 19-17. Down 13-6 at the half. The Lions led 17-16 with 37 seconds to play. A busted coverage allowed Minnesota to get into field goal range, which ended that one. That left us 0-5. Second walk-off field goal loss in 3 games. Then lost in Game 6 at home against Cincinnati Bengals 34-11. This is the first time where we were really blown away by a team. The Chicago Bears game, we were merely disappointing, but still kind of always just about in it. Against the Bengals, we were not a factor whatsoever. 10-0 down at half-time, but it was 34-3 with 2 minutes to play. and the Lions go down and score a pointless garbage time touchdown with a 2-point conversion to make it a 23-point game. I remember thinking at the time, go for 2? If you want. Why? Fair enough. Game 7, loss against the LA Rams, potentially one of the most exciting games of the season. 28-19 loss, but we gave them a massive scare with lots of misdirection and trick plays. The Rams led 17-16 at half time, but it was a 6-point game all the way until the final minute of the game. So, a team far better than us, playing tonight in the wild card, but potentially one of the favourites to get to the Super Bowl at this point. That left us 0-7. And then just before the bye, Game 8, a loss at home against the Philadelphia Eagles, much of the same as the Bengals game. 44-6, we were absolutely blown away. It was 41-0 halfway through the fourth quarter. Philadelphia went 46 carries for 236 yards and 4 touchdowns in that game. We were all talking about how nice it would be to get into the bye with the first win, what a lift that would give. And considering how we played against the Rams, I don't think that was an unfair thing to think. But looking back now, that's, for me, the most disappointing game of the season. That led us into the bye 0-8. Let's talk about those last 4 games, boys. A loss at Minnesota versus the Bengals, at the Rams, and at home against the Eagles. Let's go reverse order now. Go to Ant. What did you think about those next 4?
It was chastening, some of those, let's say. I mean, start with the 2 blowouts first. Again, that was a result of us not offensively being able to get anything going, and that's where the first, real signs of concern came in, just about how bad our offense was. We got 6 points through the first 3 quarters against Minnesota. We got no points against the Eagles. We got no points against the Bengals through 3 quarters. How the hell, through a 4-game stretch, can you have 3 games where you put up 6 points over the first 3 quarters? That is just, quite frankly, unforgivable. You're not even getting in field goal range to knock a field goal over. You're getting so far behind in a game, and you're putting everything on a defense which is full of rookies and UDFAs. And it showed. And I remember those games, and the defense did really well, in fairness, in most of them. And it was just heartbreaking to see them working so hard. And, we were going in at the half, not even 10 points down for some of these games. So we're like, we could still get back in this. But that offense, the play calling was so atrocious. The run game, we kept, we'd be 6 points down and we'd get away from the run game like we were in a 20-point hole with 5 minutes to go. We just wouldn't use it. And when you put in the ball in Goff's hands to try and win games, it doesn't work. He's not that sort of QB. He's a QB who needs a functioning running game with him to take the pressure off, because teams just started sending the house to him all the time. And lo and behold, he panicked. He made a lot of mistakes, and our red zone, efficiency was just absolutely in the toilet. So this was the most concerning set of 4, I think, obviously with the 2 big defeats. But on the flip side, I will say the Rams game was the first one where I did generally have hope for what Dan Campbell was doing, because everyone by this point thought we were going to get annihilated. And I know the people here on this podcast, a lot of you put 20, 30-point margins victories on it. And, I can't blame you for that, the way we were going. But I remember us coming out, we executed the 2 fake punts on there. We kept them guessing. We got really into the arsenal of trickery, which became our standard bearer during the season. And the way the team really fought in there was sort of reinforced my belief that Campbell was doing the right things. He was getting the culture right, but our offensive coordinator was just not doing the job right. So there was a little bit of both in there, but just as far as the quarters go, that was the most chastening of the season, and it wasn't even close.
With the Eagles game, that was the earliest I'd turned a game off all season. It was dreadful. We were dominated in every phase. We got bullied in the trenches. We made Jalen Hurts look like an all-pro. I think I got to halftime and I was like, yep, let's write this one off. I thought we could go toe-to-toe with them because they were a middling side. Got bad. The Bengals, well, we saw there and then that they were going to be a really good side. We had absolutely no match. We were down to, as you mentioned, the rookie, inexperienced corners, got torched by likes of Jamar Chase. Like he had a phenomenal day. Burrow was in his groove, protected really well. Minnesota, oh, that was just another game where I was just like, that was there for the taking. We should have beaten Minnesota. Another walk-off field goal, that third down, long, busted coverage. Oh, it was painful. And then they get that chip shot. I was just like, that felt like it had been good going into the bye. Then the LA game, that was the LA. Well, but this series of games was the end of Anthony Lynn. I knew straight away he was gone. Before the bye, he was out because the relationship were gone. They diminished his powers already. I'm pretty sure by the Rams game, DC was pretty much in control. That's when we saw the fourth down plays starting to come off. We were hitting the fakes. We were catching them off guard. Dan Campbell came into his own in that game there. Goff, we were calling for his head. Like, how many fumbles had he coughed up by week 8 or 9? He had given the ball away by now so many times. Most of us have brushed our hands of him. Like, he looked like he didn't want to be here. It was just a byproduct of a trade that gave him a new lease of life. But it was doom and gloom going into the bye. It was very painful. The offense was stagnant like swamp water. It was just not ticking whatsoever. And it was just, I didn't see what direction we were going into the bye because it was at an all-time low. Heads were dropping because the bodies were dropping as well. By now, we've had many serious injuries. We know Decker needs surgery. Like, Sewell's got the cold. Ragnall's going to get hurt soon. Tyrell Williams had the concussion. We've not seen him. Okuda is limping. Like, these big names, Aquara, like, I'm pretty sure by about week 9 or 10, these names were pretty much all gone. Like, we were down to a bare bone side of just kids and free agents. The defense was just on the field 70% of the time. They were just knackered. Of course, we were going to ship points per game because offense just went on, punted or gave the ball away, and then just rolled it back out again. It was just it was a never-ending cycle, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, these were definitely the dark days of the season, without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, other than the rare bright spark in LA, but I think, like Ant said, from them 4 games, I think we went virtually 2 whole games without scoring. In when you total it up out of 16 quarters, I mean, we didn't score in 8 of them, I believe. So it was just it was really bad. I think Goff was about as popular as Boris Johnson is right now. So it was pretty bad. Everyone was calling for his head and just wanting him to go, but and calling for the backup QBs to get a shot and everything like that. And like I say, the injuries started kicking in. I think that people are frustrated with no production realistically from many of our wide receivers. Amon St. Brown, we hadn't seen anything from him realistically then, whether he was getting a fair shot or not, probably at that time. But thankfully, obviously, after the bye, people did start to man up a little bit more. And, obviously, we kind of, brought some more positive performances into our game. But some of those games were atrocious. And, if you look back, though, 3 of them are against teams that are in the playoffs. So, obviously 2 of them are gone now, but, there were 3 teams that got into the playoffs. And, but overall, they're not great teams, and they're teams that you'd fancy probably beating this time next year. But it was just dark days then, wasn't it? It was really bad. And I remember wanting to put my foot through the telly with the Eagles game. That was just unbelievably frustrating. So it was that was bad. So there's not much I can add. The boys have covered it perfectly, basically.
Yeah, right. We'll go into the next quarter and I'll come back to Ryan first for this one. So game number 9, week 10. So coming out of the bye, Dan Campbell's just taken over play calling duties in the bye week, having gotten fed up with some of the awful performances which we've all been talking about. And then potentially one of the worst games of the season, the tie at Pittsburgh, 16-16. Neither team wanted to win that game. Both sides trying desperately to lose as much as possible. That made it 0-8-1, avoiding the dreaded 0-17. We then went into week 11, game 10, with a loss against the Cleveland Browns, 13-10, as if it couldn't get worse from that Pittsburgh game. It was one of the worst offensive performances I've ever seen. Now, it did have Tim Boyle in the game, Jared Goff out with his injury. We were down 13-0 at the half and scored 10 unanswered points. Tim Boyle threw for 77 yards and 2 picks. game of running backs. That took us to 0-9-1. Game 11 was a loss again against the Chicago Bears, 16-14. The Lions were again up late by a point on Thanksgiving. Me and Ryan both there. Lose to another walk-off field goal. The Lions could not handle Darnell Mooney in that game. Goff's connection to Josh Reynolds, who'd been signed the week before, became more clear with a really nice touchdown down the sideline. That made it 0-10-1. And to round out this quarter of games, the Lions' first win of the season came against the Minnesota Vikings at home, 29-27. The Lions scored 20 points in the second quarter to lead 20-6 at the half. But then they go behind with 1:50 left, 27-23, needing a touchdown for victory with no timeouts and 2 minutes remaining. Goff leads a game-winning drive with Amon-Ra St. Brown catching the walk-off touchdown with zeros on the clock to win it, leaving us 1-10-1. And it seemed a bit hollow to celebrate so wildly, and I know the team were criticised nationally by the celebrations, but I still loved that moment. It was just so great to win one in division. Goff doing something I didn't think he was capable of. It was surprising to me. I absolutely loved it. Ryan, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Chicago, Minnesota. I think you were present at 3 of those games.
Yeah, it went to 3 of those. The Pittsburgh game was atrocious, wasn't it? I mean, it was like, what the fuck am I doing here watching this, man? 2 really poor quarterbacks. No one wanted to win it. It was pissing down with rain. It was cold. But it was just a bad game of football. I mean, but we should have won. I mean, if we had a kicker that day, we would have won the game. So, for as bad as we were, we should have won that. And that was, there's not much to really talk about from that game, I don't think, because both teams were just as bad as each other. And, obviously how the Steelers actually managed to find their way into the playoffs is quite amazing to me as well. The Browns game, I thought we were really great defensively that day. I mean, like everyone showed up, I thought, that day. I thought we were really, really good. We put Baker under a lot of pressure. Really, really, really good defensive performance, I thought, that day. And I thought out of basically those 3 games that, I attended, this was the one we should have probably definitely have won out of a lot of them. But then the Lions game on Thanksgiving, there's some really good plays by Goff from what I remember, bombing it down there. It's kind of like letting it go a little bit, and it was great to see. But obviously came up a little bit short there. We just couldn't get them off that on that final drive. And I think, didn't we call 2 timeouts, which was really strange, which cost us 5 yards at the end as well. And just a little bit strange game management there. But obviously this is when Dan Campbell was getting getting used to his play calling. And then obviously the Vikings was we'd done everything there to realistically try and mess it up. I remember Goff getting strip sacked, I think, at virtually at the end of the game. And you're thinking, this is just typical. Like, we've played quite well, we dominated the game overall, and now we're just going to shit the bed again. And but we managed to show some guts and win it with no seconds on the clock. So, it was really good because we were aggressive. And then some players started to come into their own. You started to notice some of those players that weren't household names at the start of the year kind of come into their own a bit, especially like Jacobs and stuff like that. And I thought he was phenomenal in Cleveland as well. So, there was real signs of positive, obviously. And, that's what we're probably going to be talking about in like the final part of the season roundup, is the positives from it. And I think it all started from, obviously, mostly when Campbell took over the play calling duties, and the team definitely got a lift as a whole. So there was positives, even from that Browns game. I would have thought more than the actual Pittsburgh game personally, but yeah.
I think it was funny because before the bye, we were calling for like Goff to become one of Henry VIII's next victims. We would have beheaded him. But then when we saw Boyle and how bad he was, I would have given him one of my organs. I'd have given him a kidney to get him back healthy and get him back again. It's amazing what a few weeks can do, because suddenly we wanted Goff back. The Pittsburgh game, you know what? It wasn't that bad. The conditions were god awful. They weren't great. We weren't great. Both teams in the end were a bit scared to lose. So in the end, they were just like, let's go on as even, shake hands. A tie felt like more of a win for us, even though people found it really funny. Like, yeah, we couldn't go 0-17, but it felt like something had done really well.
I remember how angry you were after that game, by the
way. Oh, because I hated Ryan Santoso. We pretty much reset. By this point, we've gone through 5 starting kickers. We've had more kickers than I've had hot dinners. Like, because just everyone sucked, so we didn't try them. Like, I hated that dude. Everyone hated him. But the Cleveland game was, I think, the best game of all the ones that we lost by like less than a score, because defensively we're brilliant. We made Baker Mayfield pay for all those injuries. We put him under pressure all day. He was throwing errant passes. I think Armani got a great interception late on off one of those wild ones. Offensively, totally stagnant, but what do you expect him, Boyle? Like say, he's barely played a few quarters as a pro quarterback before now, so we didn't expect much from him. But it was a running day. The Minnesota game, we snatched victory from the jaws of defeat. As you mentioned, we came close. There was some penalties. There was some overturned decisions later on. We managed to, if you squint real hard, he looked like Matthew Stafford on that game-winning drive, didn't he? Like, he had that kind of prowess about him. He was working in that 2-minute drill. That was a great win. This felt like the most important 4-game stretch of the season. Dan Campbell's taken over. We're suddenly going for it on 4th down. We're being more aggressive. This suddenly we're making better decisions with what we've got at our disposal, which is by now not a lot. But the likes of Khalif Raymond have started to kick in, having some good games. We're seeing the likes of Godwin, like he got some touches as well when Jamal and Swift were picking up knocks. So we were seeing some rotation there. Josh Reynolds has come in. Like say, if we knew that was we needed to give Goff to kick up the arse, should have signed him at start of year. Who knows what would have happened, because he just looked like he was best friends with him. So it was the Bears game, like Thanksgiving. It always hurts Thanksgiving when you lose, especially to a rival. That was another frustrating one. Like, by now, I'm sick to death of kickers. Whenever it comes down to a game-winning field goal, I just turn off because I'm just like, oh well, we've lost. We were so close, but yet so far. By now, it's just I just can't do it again. But to come out of that at 1-1-2, I was pleasantly surprised coming out of the bye. Like, I thought things felt different.
I think in 5 years' time, we're going to look back on this quarter of the season as probably the one that defines Dan Campbell's reign the most for me, because this is where the culture and the attitude really started to kick in. Now, bear in mind, you're an 0-8 team with a team full of rookies, youngsters, very few good experienced guys in there. Like say, we got Brown playing at center, we got Jacobs, Parker, Price in the secondary. These guys all of a sudden started to group together. They started to play like a team. And over those first 3 games, considering all the injuries we had and the lack of experience we had, to be averaging 14 points a game, giving up over that 3-game period. I mean, you're going to the Steelers, you're going to Heinz Field, and I don't care how bad people say they are with Ben and that. When you go there, you are in for a fight. You are going to get beaten, battered, pummeled by that team. And you know what? We gave them as good as they got, as they gave us. You know, when they laid a big hit on us, we laid one back. This was Dan Campbell's ethos, as if you knock us down, we're going to get back up and you're going to have to knock us down harder. And that's when you saw the team really, really start to emulate that. The defense especially just did wonders. I mean, we got the run game started to get going. I mean, that Steelers and Browns game, Swift got 130 yards both games, I believe. He had 2 monster games for us. So we started to get the run game going, which we'd not got going all season at all. We started to see more flashes from the receivers, and we were keeping teams who had potentially heading towards the playoffs. They were at the time anyhow, in very close games. And it was just these little bits of indecisiveness at the end. I think it's the inexperience and the naivety of your coach, your players. At this point, they didn't know how to win games, and we were making silly little mistakes towards the end. But I think that's perfectly understandable for the team and what situation it was in. I don't think you can expect them to be able to come up clutch in some of those situations, given, you know, the lack of leadership and experience that was there. But Then you get to the Minnesota game, and that, I don't care what the national media said about that and the celebrations and that celebration was entirely and justly warranted because we fought really, really hard in that game and we played really well. And then to go behind so late after a mistake and you've got to drive up the field to win a game takes a lot of heart and it takes a lot of skill to be able to do that. And our team could have just, folded. We're stupid. We're 0-11 by then, about 0-11-1 by then. And for them to be able to drive down the field with no timeouts, with a lack of time on the board, and to be able to get that game-winning touchdown, that was the moment where we learned how to win a game. And I think that was the next stage of the evolution that was there. And we could be looking at that pass as, again, in 5 years and said, look, that is what really started Dan Campbell off here. That is what started this whole revolution in Detroit, was that one pass. And it's not a stretch to say that. And we were also relieved because we'd seen this coming. There were so many weeks we'd just been beaten to the punch, these field goals, we'd just lost out. But then we finally won one. And as you saw, as the season went on, that one win started to turn into more wins. And, this is the evolution you're looking for in your team. And it was a hell of a good win for us. It was a divisional rival. It felt so sweet because the Vikings were on their way to the playoffs. Oh, yeah, we're going there. In the end, because of us, they didn't make it. And we've not been able to make a splash like that in the NFC North for so long because Patricia was just fucking useless against all three of them. So I loved this part of the season, despite the game's been bad, because I saw, Campbell's thing this year was, I want to install the culture. I want to install the fight. I want to install the bite in the players. And this is the 4-game period where you really saw it take hold. And you saw guys who had no right to be making names of themselves in this team doing so, to the point now where we might be keeping them on this year when we would never have given them a cat in hell's chance of doing so before. So I love this 4-game stretch.
Yeah. I wonder if it was when Campbell kind of like, maybe gave him like a right volley in or something, like maybe, grabbed him by the scruff of the neck and said, like, you've got to start showing me something, or, got into St. Brown, got into Goff and just said, look, we can't play frightened or whatever, that fuck it, we'll make mistakes, but, we're going to go out swinging, basically, not just kind of playing a little bit kind of timid that like we were at certain parts of the season. I just thought he must have put a rocket right up their arse then. And that's when we did see, the team show their identity and kind of like, the fight that we were just talking about, what we were expecting more of throughout the season. So, and like you're saying, people, that weren't household names were really starting to stand up, and it was a depleted squad, virtually throughout the season, but, really gave the effort that we all expected at very least of this team.
Well, I think the big thing for me, and I've mentioned this over the pod a few times this year, I think this was a culmination of Dan Campbell's aggressive policy of going for it this season. I've said always, I believe that this is a year you should have done it because you put your players in pressure situations and you find out who can stand up and convert in those pressure situations. Now, I can't remember which game it was, but there was the game when Goff tried throwing out to St. Brown where we lost a touchdown right at the end because he completely went for the wrong route. He went for the wrong guy. I can't remember what game it was now, but I know he got massively ridiculed for it because someone had broken out to the pylon and was covered and someone was free inside. But you saw that same play again in the Minnesota game where Amon-Ra steps up, gets his route right, Goff gets the throw right, and those pressure situations sort of led to that. They finally got it right because they kept getting put in the situations repeatedly of high pressure. And these players came up clutch when they needed to, Amon-Ra included. So I believe that is... Sorry, go on, Matt.
No. It was just the play you're talking about. I think, is that throwing to Hawk over the middle into triple coverage with Amon-Ra doing a crossing route to the right-hand side on a busted coverage?
I believe so. Possibly something along those lines. No, he threw out to the guy who did the break outside, but It was the wrong throw.
Okay.
But this was sort of a similar thing where it was the same sort of route and that, but they converted it because that was a 4th and Summit situation which he could have taken a field goal on. But keep putting your players in pressure situations and eventually they'll deliver for you. And in the biggest pressure situation of the season, they converted it, and then Amon-Ra looked a different player after that. Goff looked a different player after that. The team just got that belief in them after that, and I don't think they'd have got that if we'd have spent all seasons kicking field goals and punting.
Yeah, they seem to get the bit between their teeth, and going into the fourth quarter of games, the last 5 games, starting off with a loss at Denver, 38-10, and despite how one-sided that sounds, the Lions actually in this game for much of it started off going 14-0 down, but only 17-10 at half-time, and then Denver scored 21 unanswered points in the second half as the offense just falls apart and the defense can't hang. Real shame. Javonte Williams, I know, had a bit of a day in that game. 1-11-1 at this point. Moving on to one of perhaps 2 of the best games of the season. Win at home against the Arizona Cardinals. I think they were leading the NFC at this time, 30-12. They dominated the Super Bowl contenders. They were up 17-0 at the half. Trick plays, aggression, chemistry, familiarity. They did not take the foot off their throat all game. Really, really encouraging stuff. Followed that up, though, by a loss in Atlanta, 20-16. It was a close game, back and forth, throwing punches, kind of slugfest sort of game. Lions kicked a late field goal, 20-13 down, instead of perhaps going for it on 4th down to try and get a tie there and then, which I hated. That resulted in a 2-12-1. 2 games to go, rolling into Seattle and losing 51-29. Lions defense got shredded by Russ, DK Metcalf, and Rashad Penny. The Lions offense looks good, but it just can't keep up with a team that hangs the 50 burger. Only at 2-13-1. Final game of the season, second time in this stretch that they're facing the NFC's number 1 team, and they beat the Green Bay Packers 37-30. This was with their 2 most important players starting the game on offense, and the Lions were ahead at the half. We talked about it last week. Just a very, very dominant, impressive performance to round off the year. That ended up 3-13-1. Let's go back around, Ant, and talk about those last stretch of 5 games. We went 2-3. We went 3-3 in the last 6, 2-3 in those 5. And we beat the 2 hardest teams in that stretch.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it was really great to see this. I mean, you're at the end of the year. It's been a tough year. You're down to the bare bones. That Broncos match should never have gone ahead. We had a whole bunch of guys on the COVID list that week, not to mention we just had the flu outbreak. We couldn't even field a roster of 52 that day. I don't even think we got the 52, and out that 50, I think it was, at least 7 of them were emergency use only because they just weren't fit enough to play snaps. And the fact that we were forced to go to Mile High and play that game after our first win of the year, that's just ramping up. We're in a bad enough situation already where we're just completely wrecked from injuries and inexperience, etc. And to ask us to go there with no players and play a game against the Broncos, we're a decent team when they're at home. It's hard to beat them there enough as it is. But even in that game, you saw players start to come to the fore. Like you said, we were 14-0 down early. We dragged it back to 14-10. They could have got away with that one from us. And it was only because the second half came and just, sheer lack of numbers told. But even in that game, I think, Aleem got his first sack in that game. He played really well. Lamonier came in, played well. Josh Woods got about 16 tackles, something stupid like that. You still had guys coming in and putting in performances there. And, it was just because it was the ultimate of circumstances that we lost that one by as much as we did. But I mean, then to come back the week after against the Cardinals, that was just special. I know we have something over them because they just can't seem to beat us, but that was when I think, the Lions were like, we're fed up of being disrespected. We're going to come out and we're just going to absolutely take the game to you. And I think we just let loose. This is where Campbell started to get his play calling right again. We started mixing up the calls. We were mixing fakes in there. I think we even onside kicked in that game to get the ball back after the first touch. I think it was that one we onside kicked when we went 7-0 up. We got it back. Again, putting your players in pressure situations and watching them deliver. And it just felt like we were seeing the culmination of all that hard work and toil of the first 8 games, but we'd seen the little nuggets of good, and we started seeing those really come to the surface there. And I mean, the Cardinals had nothing on us in that one, and it was just really, really good to see the team fighting so hard. It was good to see Goff looking confident because, he's had a rotten year after what's happened to him and his reception here and how he didn't start well. And, some of that is on him. But again, this really sort of felt like the part for him where he started his redemption arc, where he started playing well. He started cutting out the stupid turnovers. He started getting us into the end zone. We started converting more. The offense started to look a lot more fluid with Dan Campbell making those moves. And it's going to take time for him to get it right as a play caller. It's the first time he's done it, but this is where it really started to feel, that we were landing on it, and it justified his choice to get rid of Lynn, or to at least take him off play calling duties as such, to be able to start getting this right. And just again, the fight was there to see so late in the season. The Falcons game we only just lost. The Seahawks one, I know we technically got a bit blown out in that, but just like Denver, it's a really hard place to go, Seattle, and win, especially with the players they've got there. And I think, defensive injuries were catching us up at this point. Jacobs was already out. Parker was, I believe, out as well. Again, injuries just came up and we couldn't do it. But I mean, that Packers game, just to finish off, just encapsulated everything that this team is. They fought and they fought and they fought. They did not give up. They were beating Green Bay's first team at the first half. And you can say, how much were they invested in it, but they were playing well. And we just carried on going at them. And the big thing was at the end, when they took the lead again, it was the first time they'd had the lead all game in the fourth, and you thought, uh-oh, here we go. Game's going to round out now. What do? They go straight back up and score, and then they pick off Jordan Love twice, and they end the game out. And we've not seen that in so long. This sort of felt like a team now that's really finding its identity and is really like, it's not going to lay over and be bullied anymore like it was under Patricia. You can just sense something different. And I think that just does a hell of a lot for us going forward. I don't care we missed on the first round pick. That win meant a hell of a lot more. This team finishing the season with 3 wins after going winless for so long is a really good sign for us, because they know how to win games now, and they're only going to start doing it more often.
Yeah, Denver, it was just shit circumstances, wasn't it? As you mentioned, we've called 7 players off the active squad for that emergency game. Javonte Williams builds up a head of steam, so we're struggling in the trenches. He gashed us on the day. Like I say, he had a really strong outfit. So we were always playing from behind. It's an away game, never easy to go. The conditions played in their favour. They managed to control the clock, so we weren't able to do much there. Seattle, got absolutely destroyed by Mr. Injured Reserve, Rashad Penny, the third back, who is that hurt, because like I said, that was one of the worst defensive performances all season. We were tackling fresh air for 60 minutes. Awful day tackling. At least everyone whiffed. Like a lot of those guys, it was not a good day where many could hold their head high. Offense just couldn't keep up. We couldn't go blow for blow with them each time as they marched down the field with a consistent run game. Packers, first half, brilliant. Like I said, they did play at least a full half with the starters, and we were leading at the half. Took the foot off the gas in the second half. Like I say, we could have lost when Josiah DeGuara, like I say, when he waltzes in for that touchdown. Everyone thinks, oh no, here we go again. But we remembered it's Jordan Love. If you get a bit of pressure on him, he'll crumble. And we did. We didn't go into our shell. There was no ducking our heads, just trying to see it out. Like I say, we got after him. We forced those game-changing turnovers at the end and managed to get that one done. So no one can take that win away from us, even draft position. We played their best players for a half. We were leading at half. We won the game. So don't matter who they rotated in. It was a really good stretch of football. It was nice to see the half out, because by now we are down to the bare bones. We have got players. We're ending games where Jonah Jackson's playing centre. Like, at what point in your season do you want him to be starting centre for a whole half of football? We were limping over the line, so there was a lot of pride in that performance to have a destroyed O-line still managing to get a job done at the end of the year. Took the good and the bad. I said to pop with the draft position, didn't give a piss about where we were picking. wanted to beat Green Bay. Seattle, Denver, they were just blips. Who was the other game?
Seahawks.
Falcons. Denver, Falcons. That was a frustrating day, but that was a Kyle Pitts game. We just could not cover the dude whatsoever. He was smoking everyone, moving the ball downfield. Frustration at the end because of that interception. Like, we had the chance to win. Stares down the receipt. Stares down, like say, frozen double coverage. Just one of those blips, one of those mental errors that unfortunately had them wrap the game up. That could have gone a different way in any other day. So that was one of those games where it was very even. It was a relief to get to the end of the season because we had so few bodies. If we had still had a few games to go, I would really have worried about how short we were getting in numbers. But in the end, when you look who we had available to us, and some of them were playing through injuries, I was really proud to see that some of them staked a claim to be here next year as well. There were guys like the likes of Brock Wright, who really showed up in like last 5 games. He had a really good performance. We had other guys that really turned up. Kadarrell Hodge showed up as well. Like, there's guys here that were thinking, I want to be a Lion next year, so I'm going to put in a performance at the end of the year. And some of them really stepped up, especially guys that not seen snaps all year. We had Craig Reynolds that had a nice stint towards the end of the year as well. So it was nice to see some of those faces were getting playing time, and Evan Brown and Tommy Kramer. So those guys out there that needed playing time, they got it just because guys were going down with injuries, but they held their own and they showed that they definitely were for consideration for a roster spot next year. So it was nice to sift through who's deadwood and who is going to be in contention to be here next year. And that stint of games right at the end showed us that some of them have got the fight and desire to, when the chips are against us, back themselves into a corner, they stand up and they were willing to fight and get the end of the season done. And it's always nice to beat Green Bay. We've done it before, but this one felt different to that 35-0 win because we had a strong lineup against us in the first half. So I was thoroughly impressed and I love that win.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that Ryan struggled with his internet to watch the majority of the back end of the season, so I'm going to briefly skip over you, my man. I don't know if you did have a comment on that Green Bay game. You said you might have something.
Well, no, I remember I watched obviously the Denver game. It was like Kent said, we were just absolutely annihilated by injuries and illness. I remember even someone wearing the number 9 jersey because like they had to give someone the number for the actual game, and it was like, who the hell's that guy wearing number 9? Yeah, it was that, that was, not much you could do about that. It was disappointing, like you say, after the fact that we had just got our first win of the season. So it'd be nice to go there again and with, few more fitter bodies. But the Arizona game was probably, obviously, because I got to watch it all, my favorite game of the season. Obviously a lot of people were kind of in a way hoping for us just to get that number 1 draft pick. And if you didn't love or enjoy that game, there was something seriously wrong with you, because the performance was everything you wanted to see and everything now that I think that we expect this time, next year. And if we play like we did there, I think that, we're going to, especially with the strength of schedule that's there next year, I think that, this Lions team can probably pick up easily 9 wins next year. But, that's for another time. But, that was just a great game to watch. And, when we gave the ball away, we went and got it straight back with Oruwariye picking off Kyler Murray, and just a great game. I really enjoyed watching that game the most. And like you say, unfortunately, my internet was down for about 3 or 4 weeks here, so I only got to watch the highlights of the Atlanta game and the Seahawks, which thank God I missed that really, because 50 points being put up against you is never fun. And then obviously the Packers game, which as everyone mentioned, it's great to always beat them. No one likes them. And kind of like saying it with those games, it took Patricia 2.5 years to get 2 wins in our division. And, that's a highlight, I suppose, or something to take away from it, that we did beat 2 division rivals this year as well. So, the fight's definitely there. So, a positive to take away.
Can we just cut out that bit where Ryan said 9 wins next year and keep that on file? Because I've never ever heard Ryan say above 5 when it comes to wins for the Lions in all our
Nine
time
is above
podcasts.
500 as well. He's predicted over 500.
I think definitely we're good for 8. I think you can definitely keep that bit in. I think we're definitely good for 8 next year. I think we're going to have a really good year next year, boys.
All I need now is Martin to say that, and then something's really going to go wrong with the Matrix.
That's enough for tonight.
Does this mean I've got to go higher than 8 or 9 wins to be optimistic now? That's pushing it, but it's what you're making me do, Ryan.
That's it, mate. Raise the bar. Raise the bar.
God, we're gonna have to go for 10 or 11 now.
Yeah, you might have to, and it could happen. It could happen.
Right.
It's not you know what? The schedule's a damn sight easier than it was this year. So the first year of our rebuild, we were given one of the worst schedules we could have asked for.
Yeah, that's what I was meant to actually add to it. You're 100% right. That's part of the reason why when we looked at it at the start of the season, we said, look, this is going to be tough. Obviously, the injuries played a hell of a part again, which, I'm sick of talking about the poxy injuries, but it seems like we just pick them up more than anyone else. And like you say, the schedule was really difficult. And, the games where we thought, we'll probably get a bit of a spanking in, i.e. the Rams, i.e. the Baltimore Ravens and the Arizona Cardinals. We actually put in some really great performances, and we were disappointed at the end of both of those games, 2 of those 3 games. So, definitely, reasons to be cheerful.
Right. Any observations generally about the team before we move on to a player-by-player review, boys?
I think just in terms of the team, it was nice to have a season where you saw players develop in a positive way. I think that was just one of the big takeaways from this year. You can say, yes, we've only won 3 games, and people ridicule for it, saying as we're not setting high enough standards and that. But I mean, what were the standards we set this year? We wanted the culture to change. We wanted the fight to be there, and we wanted to see a coaching staff which made its players better, which Matt Patricia never, ever, ever did. And we managed all 3 of those, so it was just wonderful to see all these guys who came here. And I put it on Twitter, it didn't matter who they were. It didn't matter whether they were a backup like Evan Brown. We didn't even know Frank Ragnow was missing. He was a backup. He came in and played absolutely lights out. Whether you've got undrafted free agents, you've got Kramer on the offensive line. You've got the 3 corners who all came in and played unbelievably well. And even the vets, Charles Harris came here and had a career year. And your rookies, Amon-Ra and Penai, it was just wonderful to see the level of development from the players this year. And, teams need to be scared about us going forward, because we're getting all our money back this year and we're getting all our injured players back. So, just as far as the season goes, the player development was just amazing to see, because we're just not used to it.
Like you say, there was times where they could have gone out and they could have picked up probably, better players, in terms of, with more experience in free agency, and they decided to stick with the youth and try to develop them and give them as much of an opportunity in this league as possible. So, worst case scenario, if they haven't maybe done enough to stay with us next season, they've definitely, if available, or someone that could get called back, or worst case, or hopefully put up enough film to kind of get another job in the league somewhere down the line. But, there was definitely big developments all over, and I'm sure we'll cover it. But, the biggest, like one of the best surprises for me last year was Big V. I mean, everyone knows that I am not a fan of him. Well, I wasn't a fan of him. Coming in and big money under Patricia and Quinn. Just, was atrocious, couldn't get it done at tackle. And then, now he's there at guard, and he's been really, really a bonus, and really, someone that you want to keep around. And, I mean, we were hoping that someone would come in and take him off our hands at the start of the year, or maybe even cut his ass, but it was just too much, obviously, money against the cap or whatever. So, big positives. And I think, obviously, when we probably narrow it down, for me, the O-line was the biggest positive part of the season for what it done as well in the run game for us as well. I was and considering the injuries we even had in that area of the field as well, I just thought that the O-line was superb this year.
Well, I mean, we've got a lot of tough choices to make now, especially in terms of giving contracts to people who are out there. Because, like I say, they've played really well, and some of them have, legitimately earned chances at other teams to go there and play well. And I don't think any of us thought we'd really be saying that this year when we took one look at the roster. I don't think we'd be saying to the point where that many of these one-year guys come in, or any of these backups come in, or even any of the practice squad guys come in and play really well. And it's a good thing to have, but they've got a lot of tough choices to make now with the roster and some of these free agents, and that's just a testament to the job that they've done. And the coaching staff has been such, Lynn aside, have just been such a positive this year. All those moves we made last summer, be it from the top to ownership, down to the GM, down to the head coach, down to his staff, the vast majority of it has stuck. We're just an offensive coordinator really away now, and hopefully not too many of the other guys get poached going forward. Because I know, the likes of Fraley, people will be back for them. We can keep them together. Then, we could be building something really special here.
The foundation is strong, that's for sure. Let's crack on with our positional review, and I know Ryan wants to tackle a few before he has to go, so let's start off with them. We'll start off with the running backs. So we'll go for DeAndre Swift to start with. Not the starter for the majority of the games he played, but certainly the lead back, if you want to define it that way. He started 4 games, played 13, 151 attempts, 617 yards, 5 touchdowns, 4.1 yards per attempt. And then in the receiving game, 62 receptions on 78 targets, 452 yards, 2 touchdowns, along with 63. It's a catch percentage of just under 80%. And it was really an up and down year for Swift. In some games, he looked absolutely unplayable, especially in the passing game. In some games in the run game, he also looked really, really handy. But for large parts of the season, he was somewhat ineffective too. It's one of those seasons where you're coming away from it going, it's good, but can you do it more regularly, boys? How do you feel on DeAndre Swift's season?
I'm not convinced. DeAndre Swift, I'm not convinced he can be a lead back in the NFL. He has got fragility. He has to prove from me between now and the end of his rookie deal that he has the durability. Because if he wants to be an every down back in the NFL, he has to step it up. Like I say, he's complimentary, he's great, he's good one game in the run, he's good run game in the receiving, but he's very rarely good at both. He is a great change of pace, but I'm not sure he's built in this league to be a running back one. But I'm not going to get rid of him. I'm not even going to consider trade offers for him, but he needs to win me over. I am not sure how much mileage he has. If he has another serious injury, like say we saw him miss weeks with his shoulder, I didn't expect him to come back. I want to have brought him back for the last few weeks, but I do worry. Jamal Williams definitely, like I say, will get lots of touches next year because he sometimes have to pick up the slack. But the running back as a whole group, lots of questions. I'm not convinced Jamar Jefferson will definitely be here next year. I've not seen enough from him. I don't think Jamar Jefferson will be here. Unfortunately, he was drafted. I know we didn't see enough of him, but he fell basically to the bottom of the pecking order. Like the likes of Reynolds and Godwin getting touches in front of him is worrying. That is not good progression, but I'm not convinced that anyone below Swift and Williams will be here next year. So we could see a revamped running room next year. It's certainly got questions about it as a group.
What about you, Ryan? How do you see this group?
I think, Ryan, there was, the funny thing was with it, there was positives from the actual run game this year as a whole. So, I think that we averaged around 4.5 yards per attempt, which got us in and around the 10th position or something like that. And I think it had been, massive improvement on past years. I think also it was our best running season or something since 2013. So obviously, definitely plenty of positives with it, and the run blocking percentages from the stats I saw were also right up there. So but in terms of DeAndre Swift, was meant to be his breakout year, and it just didn't really kind of pop for me. This year, obviously injuries took their toll, and you have to start worrying about it. We saw it with Carrion Johnson. Obviously, Swift is a much better player. By after 2 years, you're more convinced on Swift than you ever were with Carrion Johnson. But there is room for concern with him, and you just maybe start to think that Jamal Williams kind of suits our kind of overall game a little bit better. But I've always liked Swift in the past game. He always seems to offer up something great there. And, I don't know, maybe there's a small chance they might try to look at giving him the ball more as a receiver. But definitely room for concern. I think it is another position which we might have to go back into the draft and try and find someone maybe a little bit earlier this year in the rounds. But we'll wait and see on that one.
And
it's a tough one with the running game. I think at the start of the year, it was badly misused. We all thought that, especially Anthony Lynn was going to come here, and we all said, "Oh, it's going to be pound, pound, pound. We're very rarely going to see any passes." And the opposite couldn't really have been true. He just threw it all the time, and we got behind in games so quick. We didn't score points. We weren't able to see it flourish to its full extent, as it were. But I think as the season went on, you saw that it got a lot better. We've had multiple good performances from multiple running backs. Swift had had his couple of big 100-plus yard games. Williams has been, constantly churning away. I know he's probably not had the best stats out there in the world, but I think, you get decent production out of him, but even more so than that, you get a hell of a locker room presence from him, which is just as important. And, I think he does have a lot to offer us still. And then I think the depth guys behind that, you've got a good range of guys in the depth room. So Craig Reynolds, obviously he looked great in preseason. He had to wait his turn. He had to wait for his opportunity to come. And when it did, he took it with aplomb. He looked really good towards the end of the year. Godwin looked pretty decent. He's been returning and that. He had his fumble issues, but something he can sort. Jamar's been, it's been disappointing they've not used him more, but he's had his injuries, and I know they've been plaguing him there. But I think we've got a good group there. I think, it's just a case of, we need to start the season right with them next year. All 5 are under contract. I expect all 5 of them to be back. I don't expect there to be any changes. I don't really think I'd want any changes, to be fair. I think Swift and Williams are still a good pairing back there. I think when you're complementing them with Reynolds and Jamar and that, I still think there's a good running back room there. And as you've seen, you can pick them up a dime a dozen if you need to otherwise. But we don't need to be putting any draft capital into the running back room whatsoever. There are far more pressing problems at the minute, even throwaway picks. But you've not seen what Jamar can do yet. I'm still a big believer in him. I've watched him and I know what he can do, and I think he can do more than he did this year. I think running back's a very low priority area. I would expect to see the same group back again, and I think you'll see them do well next year. Because don't forget, Williams and Swift have both been plagued by injuries as well, which hasn't helped. So, overall, it's been a lot better than it has been in recent years. It's down to the O-line as well, which has been a big factor there. These guys know the system, and I think they will have a lot more success next year.
Yeah, I'm with Ant. I don't expect any changes to this squad going into the next season, just because the backups are so varied. So, in Jamar, you've got the one-cut guy as a change of pace guy who can come in and really make a difference. You saw in the limited snaps that he made, he only had 15 carries and he got 2 touchdowns. Like, the guy has got something. Now, he hasn't had the opportunity to show it, mainly because he's got no special teams upside, and Dan Campbell hammered that into him. He's got to go away in the off-season and actually put that into practice. If he comes back not any better at special teams, he's at risk. There's no doubt about that, because he can't be behind Igwebuike, Craig Reynolds, Jason Kabinda even, by virtue of the fact that you can't play on special teams. So Jamar has got some work to do to stay on this roster, but I would expect them all to stay. I expect him to put that work in. But with Jefferson, you've got the one-cut guy. Godwin, you've got the speed back. Reynolds, you've got the kind of dependable guy. Just put the ball in his hands and he'll make something happen. Now, we came up against some good run defenses down the stretch, and when he first got some touches in the first couple of games, he did really well. And then it kind of really slowed up a bit. I don't think that was on him, but specifically on DeAndre Swift, because I'll leave Jamal, I think he's been great. With Swift, I mentioned that, he was up and down and kind of disappointed, but there's been a constant theme I've seen through a load of the fans since we've been doing this podcast about Swift. And it goes back to what Dan Campbell said in his very first press conference. We're going to do what we do well. We're going to play to our strengths. We're going to put our best on your worst. DeAndre Swift is being asked to play power back when he is not a power back. We must put Swift in a situation where he's likely to succeed. We can play outside zone with Swift as the running back and play power game with Williams at that position. Or mix it up a bit more than we are doing. But at the moment, we're asking Swift to run between tackles when he's not suited to that role. So as much as I think that Swift needs to do better, and I think there's no doubt that he could still do better than he is doing despite what I've just said, that some of the blame lies with Dan Campbell, some of the blame lies with Anthony Lynn, some of it lies with Deuce Staley. He has the quality and we've seen it. We need to put him in better situations, and I hope that that's something they're going to work on in the offseason. We didn't really mention Jason Kaminda. He didn't get a huge amount of chances. His blocking was good. He obviously got the touchdown late on as well. Friend of the pod. Just wanted to give him a quick shout out. I don't think there's anything too much to mention on him really, but he's just a really good guy who goes out there and puts a shift in every week. So let's move on to the other area that Ryan wanted a quick word on before he had to go, which is the offensive line. So we had a few contributors this year, and they are the starting five should have been Taylor Decker, Jonah Jackson, Frank Ragnow, Halu Kulavati-Vaitai, and Penei Sewell. But they were complemented by, in no particular order, Matt Nelson, Evan Brown, Tommy Craner, Logan Stenberg. Did he even play a snap? Will Holden and Ryan McCullum. I think they were the main contributors, and maybe of a couple of others who had a snap here or there, but they were the main ones. And we never had a snap with all starting five, on the field at once, Ryan Farden. But when Decker came back, he looked absolutely magnificent. He was the fifth best player on offense with a 75 grade per PFF, pass blocking of 84 over 500 snaps, which is amazing. His run blocking actually suffered compared to previous years. Frank Ragnow was our highest graded player in the 4 games that he plays, but he was ably deputised by Evan Brown. Sewell having to switch from right tackle in the preseason to left tackle for Decker, back to right tackle. I mean, what do you make of what happened with this offensive line in general?
Yeah, I mean, it was for me definitely the highlight of our season, and also it was kind of like the biggest disappointment in a weird way because we didn't get to see it lined up in the way we wanted to for long enough. Obviously when you lose Ragnow, a leader like him, he's like a cornerstone of our offensive line. It's someone that we want to build around for years to come and everything like that. And he's just a phenomenal player. And then Decker, the stick he actually gets, and people suggesting that we should have traded him at parts of the season and everything like that, it's just pure madness. I mean, these guys don't just grow on trees, these kind of types of players. And to get rid of them is just completely madness to me. And then obviously we definitely struck gold with Penei Sewell. I mean, I just love that kid. I think he is absolutely phenomenal. The way he dealt with Aaron Donald in LA was just superb, and you don't see Donald back off from many people. But we saw even throughout the injuries, other people come up, like we mentioned. Big V, really did show that he is an asset to this team now, and someone we can basically rely on going forward and not have to worry about him going into next season as long as he continues to do what he does. He'll be there. And Evan Brown was absolutely brilliant in replacing Ragnow. I mean, he really was a great surprise. And Jonah Jackson is someone that I've always think is underrated. I don't know, I very rarely ever see him let us down. So, the quality is just there, no doubt about it. And, we saw, like I say, the run game, be our best one since 2013. It's mostly because of that and the work that the coach has put in there. He's obviously got a big future, I think, in the game as well. So, it's just I think the best part of our team right now. And, maybe at times maybe struggled a little bit in the pass protection, but could you question that maybe Goff wasn't the fastest at kind of getting the ball out? So, but especially the first part of the season, I think you could say that. So it's just, all in all, really, really good. And it's the facts kind of speak for themselves, especially, like I say, with all the players that we were missing. So going forward, that's, we're in a really good position with that. I think we kind of knew that, but provided they stay fit, they'll help us win games on their own next year, I feel.
I don't expect
Brian, sorry.
The Decker trade, those talks won't go away. I still expect the odd people to, throughout the off-season, to consider trading him, knowing that invested heavily in him, they'll want more money in the future. So that won't go away. Like, it was great to see him come back because I wasn't convinced we were going to activate him. Like, he wasn't practicing much when he came back from the injury. It seemed like quite a surprise that they activated him. He's still playing with the brace, warming up. We've got what I want next season is I just want to see this line play together. Just give me one game where all of them play together. I think we could do great things. We saw lots of penalties in offensive line this year, but that's just because they weren't playing together. They're all changing position, weren't they? When you don't have a settled offensive line, you're going to get false start calls. When you've got different people snapping the ball, you'll get these odd false start penalties. So at times the rhythm was totally out, but that's because we were chopping and changing. Everyone Matt said from after Tommy Kramer can go, there were three names, Stenberg,
Nelson. Holden, McCullum.
Yeah, they can all go. They were non-factors. Matt Nelson, liability as an offensive lineman. He was terrible at tackle, but as an extra lineman, as a blocker, he looked okay, but he can't be trusted on the line. He caused problems on that time. But the likes of Evan Brown, playing centre is not easy when you've got to snap and have that sort of rhythm and relationship with quarterback. Stepped in really well. Jonah Jackson, do you know what? He was a bit up and down this year for me. I didn't see the progression I would have liked from him, but that's because the people outside of him were swapping a lot. He looked good, but also he was one of those guys that he did get quite a few penalties, I feel. Like there was things going on. He did have up and down weeks. Sewell got what I expected. Great interchangeable player. He will just do what he's told. Tell him to play guard, tell him to play left, right tackle. Does what he's told. Don't argue. He's a great team player. Ragnow, great centre. Invested heavily in him. He's going to be the anchor when he's fit. He's a top 3 guy. So hopefully he comes back nice and healthy. Decker, team guy. I think he would have done just as well as right tackle, left tackle. I think the tackles are interchangeable. If you need to be for any reason, you can swap them to keep a defense off guard. I think it would work just fine. I was fine for him to come back and play any position. They put the veteran back at where he's supposed to be. Hummed nicely along. And then there was other guys, Tommy Kramer. Nice value when he was asked to pick up injury. Played a bit guard, played tackle. Held his own out there, looked pretty good. Vitae, through half the season, I was so happy to get rid of him. Now, I'm fine. I'm easy either way. If he stays, cool. If we draft a replacement or we get a pickup, and they want to save some cap, that's fine. I won't begrudge him because he'll get picked up again, but I'm in no hurry now to get rid of him. Before the season, halfway through the season, struggled. People thought it was a liability that was very much overpaid, but offensive line, I'd say 60-40 carried the run game because so many interchangeable bodies, but they still created holes. The likes of Williams, who is a tackle runner, he still had those big holes. So run grade, run blocking did really well. Pass blocking, up and down, but as we mentioned, Goff isn't the most mobile. He's got the pocket presence of a lamppost at times, runs into sacks, so he could be attrition to some of those. So, we use I'd say 11, 12 people in offensive line this year, and it still did a pretty good job. We still amassed the most rushing yards, for nearly 10 years, so it worked, even though it was bodged and part-timers at times. That's great depth, and it shows that Frank Haley's doing a great job in getting people prepared for that next man up mentality.
Yeah, if you're power ranking the coaches in this side, I think Hank Fraley's definitely second out of the lot of them. I think there's even a case to say he could be better than Aaron Glenn. I think the job he's done in recent years has been nothing short of phenomenal. I mean, we've suffered with bad offensive lines for so many years in Detroit. It's the old adage, if people say your O-line's bad just as a casual take, usually you could apply it to us because that was the case. But, the way he's been able to develop guys, not just the main guys, because I know it's easy to go, well, he's got 3 first-round picks on that line, but one, they have been playing together, and 2, you've still got to develop them. You've seen plenty of first-round guys bust out from the offensive line positions. And I think, the way the backups came in this year and were so seamless was just a testament to how well he's getting them ready to step in if they need to. Don't forget, Evan Brown had never started a game in his career, and he's come in and he's played 13 starts for us this season. And you wouldn't know that Frank Ragnow was missing. He's not given up a single sack. I think his pass fight win rate was about 95%, which is 8th in the entire league out of centers. The man's a backup and he's a top 10 center when it comes to the pass rush win rate. That just shows how good a job he's done, and he's done all right in the run game as well. Tommy Kramer has come in. He was in the practice squad at the start of the season. No one really expected to see much of him. We all thought Stenberg would probably get the reps there. He's come in. He's played about 250 snaps himself. No sacks given up there. Given up a couple of hits, but again, with the interchangeability of the line round there, it's not to be, it's to be expected. Jonah had a bad start to the year, but there's no Taylor there with him. He played all last year with Taylor and Ragnow on both sides of him, which is why I think he had such a good year. And yet he's starting this year. He has Ragnow for a handful of games. He doesn't have Decker at all. He's playing with Sewell on the left, who's a rookie, a good one, but still a rookie. And he's playing with a backup center. So it took him time to find his feet. But when he did, he came really good again. And now you look at this line going forward, what he's creating, and I mean, Jesus, it's going to be scary. On the right hand side of the line, you've got Big V and Penne with that Pacific Islands fight in there that they're just going to absolutely go after people. And by all accounts, they're getting on really well together because of that. And then on the left hand side, you've got Decker and Jonah, who are just your good old fashioned blue chip collar guys who are going to go out and go to work. And then you've got one of the league's best centers in the middle. He's created something very special there, and we just need to see the guys there who are fit and healthy. And there's very few guys who he's not done it with. Even Matt Nelson, who's bloody useless. When it comes to the jumbo packages and the extra guys in there, it works really, really well. I can't remember which game it was. I think it may have been the Steelers game when we really ran on them and we put the jumbo packages in because we knew we wouldn't be able to, go over them. So we went through them, and that was a masterclass of a performance in health to get your offensive line working properly. And he did it with backup guys, and he did it without really any tight ends when TJ was injured. He's had Brock Wright in there, he's had Zylstra in there, and he's still been able to create a system that works. So I agree, the offensive line is in really good hands. We just need to get the guys healthy again. But the bonus from this year is we've found the backup now. We can pay Evan Brown because now we know we've got a steady center there. We can put Kramer in because he's played at right guard and left guard. We just need a little bit of tackle depth now. And we're going to have one of the best O-lines in football. And I don't think it is a stretch to say that. So, it was good to see this year, just in terms of, depth development, that we did really well. And our main guys are standing up and been noticed. They say Penne's been amazing. And Taylor just didn't look like he'd been away. So, yeah, really, really looking forward to seeing them next year when they're all healthy and good to go.
All right.
For the right price, I will bring Tyrell Crosby back if he'll return. But I want him to take a team-friendly-ish deal. We do need that tackle depth. If he's happy to return, I know people were debating it, but I'd bring him back. I don't know what his situation is. He might want to go start somewhere, which I won't blame him if he decided that he don't want to be here. Is he an EFA?
No.
He's a UFA.
Yeah.
He can go anywhere. But
yeah, so we'll see what he wants to do. I think he could start maybe on some teams. I don't know.
You need a good swing, and he showed himself to be a good swing in the past. So if he can get healthy, he's great. I mean, and then you've got your depth. You've got Kramer in there. Brown, I'd give him a tender, because he's an exclusive rights free agent. The tender's about 2.4 million. I know it seems a lot, but I think he's shown that he's worthy of such a contract because center's such a critical position that you need to be able to fill in if someone goes down. And I've no doubt he could probably provide a bit of depth elsewhere as well. I'd pay him that 2.4 million quite happily.
So there's a comment from BiggerEz70 on Twitch who says, can Brown play backup guard? He needs a level of flexibility to have him here. I think I've heard several people say that he's exclusively a centre, really, but we've not seen him at guard, so we don't know that. I guess the only people who are going to know that are the coaching staff, because I presume they would have tried him out there. But I think that remains to be seen. Just on Jonah Jackson, so in terms of PFF grade, he went from 57 last year to 70 this year. Second consecutive season with over 1,000 snaps played, which is impressive in itself. The biggest change for me in him is his progression through the season. So first 6 games, he logged 5 games out of those 6 with a grade of less than 65. The following 11 games, he posted only 3 at that level. The remainder were all above 66. Highest grade of 80 against Minnesota, but he got 2 78s in a row against LA and Philadelphia. Finished with a 77 against Green Bay. I mean, down the stretch, the guy really, really improved, especially in his run blocking. So I think one thing is that you want to see improvement year to year, but you also want to see recent improvement and progression through a season. He's definitely shown that. So I'm really encouraged by how Jones actually played in particular. So obviously, as you guys are saying, it's exactly what we expected of him. But there was actually a comment in chat just saying, I absolutely love, I think it was Steve O, I'm not quite sure. Yeah, it was Steve O. He said, I love to hear how critical Sewell was of his own play this season. He wants to be great, and he's going to be working on what he needs to get better at. Him getting mad at himself when he doesn't make a play is so inspiring to see, like visibly, audibly annoyed at himself when he doesn't make plays. And we saw that in his rookie tape. You know, when he was drafted, we saw that at Oregon. And he's carried it over here. His pursuit of perfection is massive, and he's going to be a captain on this team. Are you allowed to be a captain on the team in your rookie contract? Surely you must be. I think he might be a captain before he gets a veteran contract, because he's already a leader.
I think if
sorry, go on.
I think if you asked Sewell tomorrow what he thought of this season, he wouldn't be satisfied. He would say this season, I didn't play well, I was rusty. As mentioned, the COVID year, he'd not played football at Oregon for 17 whole months, and then played the best part of a whole year. He would not be happy. He would say, I played crap. Like, say, even though he was a mainstay on the line and he faced some elite pass rush this year. When you look at the teams we played, at least 11 of them had someone that you'd say is an upper echelon pass rusher, and he had to face most of them. So from a fan side of thing, we'd say he fit in seamlessly and didn't like a rookie. On his thing, he will pick fault of every single game, and he will never be satisfied. He's always striving to be better. I agree. I'd say not next year, the year after. I expect him to be a captain.
And I think he's got the perfect mentor by his side as well. You know, I think that's another advantage of keeping Halapoulivaati here. I think he's the perfect mentor for him, and they get on really well. If you notice, the run goes through them two a lot because they just can absolutely truck guys. So I think it's great for his development if he stays at right tackle next to Big V and learns off him, because he's got a lot to offer. Don't forget, Big V's been a tackle as well. He's got the versatility if he needs to come inside as well. So, you know, I love that match on that side. I love the match on both sides of the offensive line. I think they're paired perfectly with one another, and they're anchored by one of the best guys in the game. So it's going to be a tremendous line.
It's so versatile in that way. You saw Sewell actually in motion at right tackle, moving over to kind of be a tight end on the left-hand side, leaving Vaitai on his own on the right-hand side. But you can do that because Vaitai has the versatility to play the outside guy at tackle. Like, it's really flexible, and it's quite exciting to be able to say that. Having Decker and Sewell on one side is scary. Like, I can't wait for next season to see what that's going to look like. Let's move on to some of the skill positions at offense now, and we'll move on to wide receiver to begin with. And first couple of names, a little disappointing, shall we say. Tyrell Williams, Brashad Perryman, Khalif Raymond, Quintez Cephas, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Why can't I remember? Josh Reynolds. There we go. Kadarel Hodge, Trinity Benson, Tom Kennedy. are the main contributors I have listed. Obviously, Williams and Perriman cut before the season started after signing a $1.75 million deal, now actually performing okay in Tampa Bay after they've been so injury hit. Brady makes everyone look good, I guess. Tyrell, really unfortunate. Looks like his career might be done. There are whispers that he's going to now retire after his concussion. So that's really sad to hear. Not confirmed yet, so we'll find out on that. Khalif Raymond's then kind of assumes the wide receiver 1 spot, at least at the beginning of the season. And his season, 48 receptions on 71 catches, 576 yards and 4 touchdowns, which is, for someone who had never taken any semblance of a starter role in his career, was an exceptionally good return, really, when you think about what he'd done. He was a core special team player who popped up with a play here or there, and that was all he'd done in Tennessee before. You have a look at Quintez Cephas. Obviously, his season cut short by injury. He only played in 5 games, but 15 receptions on 22 targets, 204 yards, 2 touchdowns, including that one really big 46-yard catch. I think it was against Green Bay, which set up his own touchdown. That was super impressive. Showed something that I didn't think he was capable of on the outside. So that was really, really cool. You have a look at Amon-Ra St. Brown. I mean, obviously, he broke all the rookie records that you can for the Lions. 912 yards on 90 catches, 5 touchdowns. Fantastic stuff. Josh Reynolds came in, and he totally changed this offense. I mean, I think he was probably one of the keys to unlocking Goff and unlocking Amon-Ra. He opened up the field underneath, but Goff also looked more confident with him on the field. Reynolds, through only 7 games with the Lions, and the first one was pretty dire too. So 6 productive games, had 19 catches for 306 yards and 2 touchdowns. He had the highest yards per catch of someone with more than 1 catch, 16.1 yards per reception. The other players that I had in there, Hodge kind of started to do quite well down the stretch. Played in 16 of the 17 games, but only started 157 yards off 13 receptions, no touchdowns. Benson, probably the biggest disappointment. Traded for a 5th and a 7th. He only played in 8 games, 103 yards on 10 catches. Targeted 22 times, so he had the lowest catch percentage of any wide receiver. I don't know if that was the fact that he's a deep threat and so he's less likely to have a high catch percentage. And then the remaining guys, Kennedy, the last one, who has more throwing yards than he has receiving yards in his career after the Green Bay game, which is insane. All in all, considering how I thought about this group when we came in, I had a fool's hope of how this was going to go. And down the stretch, I'm finding myself saying it's not as big a need as I thought it was halfway through the season. Now, obviously, it's still a massive need, but before it was, I could spend both first round picks on this if I really had to, whereas now I'm fine not taking a receiver in the first round if I have to. So I'm interested to hear your thoughts on what the receivers did this year.
This was a season of 2 halves for them. I think the first half was an absolute train wreck, and they were bloody awful. But I think the trouble is the wide receiver core was not good coming into this year. It had a lack of experience, a lack of a wide receiver 1 and a wide receiver 2, and to lose your only 2 veterans on the team so early in the year. I mean, one didn't even make it to the season after we'd paid a few million up, and one got injured very quickly and never came back again. That just puts even more pressure on your rookies to come out and try and do something. And, that doesn't help. What also didn't help was Jared Goff having absolutely no confidence because LA had just sucked the life dead out of him. He only wanted to throw to Swift and Hawkinson. He really didn't want to look anywhere else, and he wasn't throwing with confidence. It was very hard for the receivers to really do anything. And even when something good did happen, Quintez Cephas, the one guy we wanted to break out more than anybody this year, we saw the flashes, and he had a really good start to the season. And, I think he was the first one that Goff really started to trust as a receiving threat. And then he goes down with an injury and is out for the year. And it's just like, they can't catch a break with any of this, and it was just such a shame to see, especially for Cephas's part, because he looked really good and he looked like he's going to be a good part of this offense going forward. And then after that, the offense just churned and churned and churned, and they got nothing. We weren't scoring points. It was abysmal to watch. And at that point, I think we were probably thinking that we'd have to clear house entirely, apart from the rookies are in there. But, you know, the second half of the season, you noticed a marked improvement. It improved, obviously, when Goff started getting better, when the play calling changed, we started using them more. Amon-Ra, it took him time, but eventually he earned the trust of his quarterback. We've seen how hard he works in training, and we all knew that it would translate to the field eventually. And he was able to do so when he got there. You know, Reynolds came in, he looked really good. He gave us a little bit of a deeper threat, managed to open the field up a bit. And more than anything, he managed to take the pressure off the young guys. Because these are all young receivers who don't have a main guy with them, who have been expected to go out there and run routes past seasoned corners, safeties, linebackers, and have an impact on a game. But they all came together as a unit, and they did really well. You know, Amon-Ra is he's going to be a hell of a player going forward for us. But we found our depth as well. Potentially Reynolds we found as a depth guy. Cephas, in what we saw, can be a depth guy. Raymond can be a depth guy. You know, a little bit of a Swiss Army knife if we were. Maybe our next Jamal Agnew. So the second half of the season was really, really encouraging considering the adversity they'd faced up to then. So, you know, I like it now. If we get one guy in the draft this year and then maybe go one more year and then really splash out for the big guy, that core is, you know, we've got a good wide receiving core there then. And I don't think we expected that at the start of this year.
No, it's a mixed bag, isn't it? Like you say, what we weren't built to pass the ball. The first, I'd say, 7 games were a bit of a car crash. As you say, Jared Goff is not yet confident. He's a rabbit in headlights when he goes in pressure. He found that security blanket of checking down to Williams, Swift, and Hawkinson. He looked scared to look anywhere past the first down marker. So when we had guys there available, they were wasted. They didn't do too much wrong. Even when they got open, they just weren't even getting looked at. So the targets weren't there. Perriman, journeyman burner, he only got landed in Detroit because of his dad and because of the history. There was no other reason that guy came here. He robbed us of $1.5 million. Like I say, and Brady's making him look good now, but that wasn't great. Tyrell Williams has a checkered past anyway. It's a shame if this ends his career. Even before he got healthy, like you say, he was a bit of a non-factor, but it was a shame if this is how it's going to end. Go through the list. Tom Kennedy, nice story. His days in Detroit are probably over. He's not got chances, but when he's had them, he's not taken them. He can't be a mainstay in this factor. Trinity Benson, just a terrible transaction. Healthy scratch, barely ever played, and when he did, couldn't catch anything. The kid drops a cold. So that wasn't great. Kadal Hodge, he kind of showed something later on down the year. He had that beautiful catch from Goff where he was short and he bounced down at the 1 yard line to set up a score, so could stretch the field. Josh Reynolds has opened the door to returning. He was the one guy that stretched the sideline. He was the one that could get 15, 20 yards field and get in behind the corner. And Goff seemed to trust him because they've had that connection before. They have that timing, so he knew how fast he could release, knew when to drop the ball in. Likes of Amon-Ra, so someone had to step up. When this group got depleted, someone had to be the guy. And it took 8 or 9 weeks for it to happen, for them to build that relationship. But when they did, and Goff felt comfortable with him, he saw limited attention on the defense, so he could get open. He was finding that soft zone coverage in the middle very consistently. Like I say, he played the middle and those shallow routes really nicely. He got good yards of separation, and I don't remember him dropping anything either. He has hands like stone. Everything that came his way, it came super clutch when he was getting out of bounds as well. When he's working towards the sideline, he's really efficient. He had a really nice year. Khalif Raymond, burner. He had speed. He got really good separation. He was able to stretch the field as well. On occasions, get downfield. Also, as a kick returner, he was able to break off the good kick. He got field position next year. I would also have him returning punts as well. He needs to. I think he could be the kind of guy that just does everything. You expect at least every handful. He's going to get you to the 30, 35 yard line, give you a nice start position. So he's consistent. He did worry me a few times, like say, like with a drop or a muff punt. He scared me at times. But for a group of receivers that looked shoddy on paper before the start of the season, if you look past maybe 8 weeks, 9 weeks onwards, they became into their own. There was some life in there. Goff certainly felt a bit more comfortable with these guys that he didn't really know, and it took a while to build a rapport with them. But some of these guys have certainly got a chance of returning next year. The biggest loser has to be Cephas, because there's going to be extra mouths to feed next year, and some of them are going to eat his targets. If he stays healthy this year, I think he has the big year in that Amon-Ra. Personally, I think he could be the main guy. But now this season, I don't know. I don't know where he fits in now.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like, he could be the number 5 or number 6, but he could be the number 6 when you only keep 5. Like, it's going to be a really rough time for him. One thing on Amon-Ra, which I don't think has been mentioned anywhere yet, on a minimum of 50 targets per PFF, Amon-Ra is the number 1 wide receiver in the NFL in terms of drop grade. Including Devontae Adams, Amon-Ra is a better receiver in terms of catching the ball than any receiver in the NFL, per their metric. And I mean, people have their opinions on PFF, but when it comes to should he catch it or should he not, that's a fairly easy thing to measure. I don't think that's particular. Some things are opinionated in terms of what's catchable and what's not, but he is unbelievable. So in terms of receiving grade, he was number 17 in the NFL this season.
I mean, it's all part of his training. You see, he goes out and does an extra 200 catches after practice with somebody, that he doesn't have to do. You see him at his home with the catching machines. He's taking practice there. He's someone who is just dedicated to his craft and been perfect at it. So you've seen all those extra 200 throws at the end of the day come forward when he's catching in games. That's where the practice comes. You want to make sure you're the best, and he's been the best at it. We all knew he was going to come good eventually, just because of the way he trains. It's not like anything we've seen here before. You don't really see the rookies with that much desire and passion to succeed sometimes, but you can tell instantly with him. Even after 8 or 9 weeks, when we said, why is he not getting targets? Why is he not getting yards? You still never believed for a second that he was in trouble. You were just waiting for the opportunity to come. And when it did, you saw he exploded right away. He was ready for it because he was trained right. It's just a matter of gaining the trust. And sometimes that takes a little bit longer than it does elsewhere. But, fair play to him. He waited and waited and waited. He didn't get frustrated. And he took his opportunity when it came. I think a lot can be said with the wide receiver group. They lost all their vets. They're all young guys who have stood up one way or another towards the end of the season and said, keep me here. As you've said, we've now got a logjam at depth here. We've got 4 or 5 depth guys. If we get a wide receiver 1 and a wide receiver 2, then Jesus, we've got an embarrassment of riches at the receiver position now, whereas at the start of the season, everyone said we had literally nothing.
Just putting a tweet out there saying offensive rookie of the year, because I don't give a shit. He's better than Chase. I mean, he's not probably, but I absolutely love him. It's not just how dependable he is at the catch point and all the effort that you say he puts in at the end of his practices, which we know he does. It's that Cooper Cup element of playing faster than your 40 time suggests. It's how precise his route running is. The reason that his catch percentage is so high is because he's good at catching the ball, but because he creates so much more separation than any other receiver on the field. But because he's a bit slight, and because he hasn't come in as a first round pick, he's not getting the attention he should either. So he's not getting the attention, he's beating who's been put up against him, and he's really good at catching the ball. It all comes together for the perfect storm. And what a season he's had.
But that's the thing, though. He was getting extra attention in those latter games. He was quite clearly wide receiving threat number 1. And even against a team like the Packers, who've been great this year on defense, he still had a lot of success. And I think that was sort of a barometer of all of Holmes' draft picks. They're all incredibly dedicated towards their craft, and they've had to wait differing amounts of time to take their opportunities. But for the most part, when they've been given the opportunity, they've come in and they've played really well. It just shows to a mindset that they've got, which is why it's so great with coaching the Senior Bowl this year, because they're going to be able to get up close and personal and really see these guys, their personalities, and really get the guys they want.
Yeah. Right, let's move on to the tight ends. Only a few to mention this time around. There's a few others who maybe... Actually, I'm going to put one more in there, because he did actually play a little bit. So, obviously, TJ Hawkinson, our tight end 2 at the start of the year was Darren Fells. We also had Brock Wright, Shane Zylstra, and Jared Pinkney, who was here, then was with LA, and then we signed him off the practice squad once Zylstra went down. We came into this knowing that Hawkinson was the guy. We also came in knowing that Fells was limited, but we knew what he was, and that he'd come in from a really good couple of years at Houston after we didn't use him effectively before that. After that, I know that we were all kind of worried about the depth at that position. Looking at Hawkinson and his stats for this season, 583 yards on 61 receptions, 4 touchdowns, 72% catch rate. If you have a look at his season before, which I think is going to be regarded now as his breakout season, he had 67 catches, so only 6 more, even though he played 4 games more. He had 723 yards and 6 touchdowns. So really, the seasons aren't that much different. His catch percentage went up this year, despite the fact he was double covered most of the time, and he was widely regarded to have a down year this year. His average value in terms of Pro Football Reference was 1 higher last year, but it's marginal. And yet, there's an air of disappointment about him and how he plays. He started off absolutely electric, TJ. So in his first couple of games, he had 97 yards to 66 yards for a touchdown in each game. And we thought we were on to a right winner. And then he went in the next 4 games, or 3 games, 10 yards, 42 yards, 22 yards, which was just not what you expect from someone who you thought was going to be the primary receiver in this offense. Looking at the other players, and Darren Fells, where is he on here? Darren Fells, 4 catches, 43 yards. Goodbye, sir.
And his blocking was atrocious.
Yeah, he was not the best. He was a good pass blocker, but run blocking, which is where we thought he was going to contribute, he was very poor. Brock Wright, the undrafted free agent and monster in terms of relative athletic score, we knew was raw. We knew he was a good blocker at Notre Dame, but didn't have much else to his game. Down the stretch, I think has proven that he can stick it here as a piece, whether it's tight end 2 or 3, that he can do it in the receiving game and that he's got something to him at blocking. Zylstra surprised me, actually, the games that he played. I thought he looked okay. I thought he looked like a passable tight end, which for someone you picked up off the street effectively was really impressive. And Pinkney, I thought was okay. This group disappointed me at tight end 1, and Fells was poor. But the backups, actually, for me, performed much better than expected. Ryan, what do you think, man?
It's a very mixed bag. Darren Fells, good riddance. The guy, he didn't want to be here. Jog on, pal. Like I said, it has to be considered a bit of disappointment for Hawkinson. The catch rate went up, but another year ended by injury. And you can see on the shoreline, that option where we're going to have to pay him, it's looming. And there's questions arising, how is he a long-term franchise piece right now? I don't know. I couldn't tell you. He started like fire, obviously got all the receptions because Jared Goff, checking down. A lot of that was check downs and then having to turn up field and make what he could. There was a lot of short passes there. We know he's got it in the locker. Blocking's very iffy. Penalties as well, he was a piss poor blocker at times this year. He was grabbing, holding when he was getting beaten. If that doesn't improve, that's a worry. That is the main thing he has to work on, because it was not good this year. It looked shoddy at times. Brock Wright, a very pleasant surprise. He blocked quite nicely for a few games before he was asked to do much in the receiving game. But then he has he had 2 lovely touchdowns on the year. The one where he shows out on the end, he looks out, fakes out, goes upfield, turns round, high points the ball, lovely. And then that dump off where, as you mentioned, the Raz score comes into it. The kid runs like a 4.7, 4.8, the 40-yard dash, and he puts the burners on. And that Packers like say to race to the pylon. That was a brilliant score. He looked like a Kittle kind of figure there. The kid's got the frame. He's got good hands. There's certainly a lot to work with there. There's maybe a tight end, like say 2-3 kind of hybrid as a H-back. He's certainly booked his seat here next year. Zylstra, it's going to be hard to come back from this fractured, shattered kneecap, but they did sign him to the reserve deal, so they're hoping to have the uses of him next year if he heals well. He showed something at the reception blocker, so I think there's some future there. Like I say, we're definitely going to have positions open at tight end next year. We're going to probably see more 2 tight end sets, maybe more receiving sets. Pinckney, had him on the field, but I didn't notice him as much as I did. So very mixed bag this year. There's questions over there. I feel indifferent about this group. I would like to pick someone up this year. I don't, like I said, this is not a great, we're not going to be throwing a high draft pick at a tight end this year because there aren't that many worthy of it, but there's certainly room to bring in some competition. Like I said, so I expect to make an addition to this group. And it's not a bad class in the middle to late rounds, so there's room for improvement. I think Hockenson next year, it's a big year for Hockenson next year. He needs 16 games. He needs a healthy year badly.
I know. I think Ben Johnson kicked someone's cap this time last year, and they cursed his tight end group this year. He wasn't helped by the circumstances. I mean, Josh Hill retired. He was meant to be the blocking tight end that we were meant to get. He was sort of what our whole game was going to be based on, while Hockenson was the receiving threat. Taumapeo got knocked up in that car crash and never played for us again. Hunter Bryant has been out injured all year and has, God knows what the hell's happened to him. Zylstra shattered his kneecap. Fells wanted to leave because he wasn't getting the targets. The tight end group has just been ravaged by injury and misfortune, as though someone's just broken a mirror a few times over. So, Hockenson, I don't think Hockenson had that bad a year. How many tight ends in the National Football League are their team's number 1 receiving target? You can make a case, obviously Kittle is, but Kittle is a different breed of tight end. He's the absolute gold standard, probably by some distance. Kelsey, you could maybe say is, but look at the quarterback he's got thrown at him. Look at the supporting cast he's got around him. It's easy for him to get a lot more yards in that offense. TJ's coming into this year with no receiving threats backing him up, no wide receiver 1, no wide receiver 2, an unconfident Jared Goff throwing at him. They just didn't look like they were on sync sometimes. He wasn't getting used a lot of the time. And, I think it's very harsh to blame this as a bad year on TJ just because of the situation he's in. No other tight end is going to thrive in that sort of system. Really, it's a lot of pressure to put on him. And he's, like you said, he was double covered all the time. I think, the year before when he had his really good year, we actually had receivers here, so we could use him differently. He had a little bit of space to affect the game. So I don't think he's got anything to prove. He needs to go out and have a good year next year, obviously, and be healthy. But I think this down year is, as you say, is entirely explainable. And I don't hold it against him. He's not looked bad at all. He got really in shape over the summer. He's been at Kittle's tight end university. He's been doing all this. He looks better. He's still as good as he was the year before. It's just the situation changes. As for the rest, Brock Wright's look good. Again, another guy who's sort of come out of nowhere and done well. But behind that, they've all been rubbish. Their blocking's been terrible. Pinckney, all that lot, they can go. Don't want to see them back. We need a proper blocking tight end here. And I think we need to go to the draft for one. There are a lot of guys in the middle to later rounds, or if you take a little one in the third, like Trey McBride, he's the ideal guy. But you want a proper blocking tight end in here to allow TJ to go and use his offensive skill more and take the blocking responsibility off him. So we need more guys there. We need depth, and we need a tight end to possibly. I think Wright can stay, but we need guys around him.
Steve O has just suggested OJ Howard, which I like a lot, personally. As tight end 2, as a compliment to Hockenson, as someone who offers something different to Wright, I think that would be really great if he came on a friendly deal.
I don't know what his blocking's like. All I know is Ohio State don't really produce good tight ends, and he's one. Well, he's one of only 2 in the league, and he's a part-time guy somewhere. I don't know what his blocking's like, so I couldn't really say. But I think we need to go younger. We've got our main guy there, and we just need a bit of backup behind him.
To be honest,
I think it's going to be too expensive.
With OJ Howard, he was the tight end 1 at Tampa Bay until Gronk went there, and before that, he was playing really well. Like, he looked like he was going to be a game-breaking tight end. Gronk came, and he got injured at the same time. And he hasn't kind of been the same player since, but I think it's just that the injury's kind of taken him a little while to get over. I think next year he's going to come back and have a big year. And I think because of the down year he's just had, you could get him at a discount. So I think it'd be interesting to see what he's going to do next year, wherever he is. That's
So on 386 snaps this year, his run block grade's 44, his pass block grade's 31.
That's a bit rough.
You can get Evan Ingram for cheaper.
He's done better in years previous, but I mean, sub 45 on both of them. His rating's less than 50. He's given up a whole host of pressures, 4 penalties as well. We don't need any more penalties in this team, and likely you're paying him a decent wedge as well. So I don't know. I just feel like we need a draftee this year. We need to just get someone, again, this team's built around prove it guys who are going to be able to, come here and, they've got a point to prove, and a draft tight end will be able to do that.
Someone say Trey McBride? Is that his name?
Yeah, he's a great blocker, and he's also a receiving threat when he needs to be, but it's not his first thing.
No.
OJ Howard's getting paid $6.8 million this year, so no.
No. Well, okay, let's move on to the final position on the offense, because we've got a lot to get through still, and we've been going for a little while. Quarterbacks: Jared Goff, Tim Boyle, and David Blau. Tim Blau? That's not his name. So, for the quarterbacks, Jared Goff, 14 games, 332 completions on 494 attempts. It's a completion percentage of 67.2%. That is a career high for Jared Goff. 3,245 yards, 19 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. That's the fewest interceptions since his 2017 year. It's also the fewest touchdowns since that 2017 year. All in all, for Jared Goff, it was another kind of season of 2 halves. Worth pointing out is his passer rating was the highest it's been since 2018, but his quarterback rating the lowest since his rookie season, which was horrifically bad. He started off very poorly, and I was one of the guys leading the charge saying, you must outright cut this guy now. And I got to fess up to that because I was wrong. Down the stretch, one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. He's always going to rely on needing a good offensive line. If you have Jared Goff in your team, you will need him to trust that the offensive line are going to keep him safe. He is going to need to trust that because that's what he needs in order to perform. Given that we do, I think that he is at least a passable option this coming season. And if he plays well, and if we can keep that O-line together, that he could be an option going forward on a very team-friendly deal. And that's the thinnest wedge I'm going to give him. Tim Boyle, he came in relief for 3 games, 61 completions on 94 attempts, completion percentage of 65%, 526 yards, 3 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 2 of which in desperation time that I'm not going to blame him for particularly, but he didn't look good regardless. Blau didn't get on the field apart from one play, one sack, I think. But there you go. It was rough at times, and then down the stretch, I trusted Goff, like I really did. the last few games, I thought, you know what, this looks great, and I'm rolling into next season the most positive I've been all year.
Ride the Jared Goff redemption arc. I think that's what we need to do here. If you look at last year in a microcosm for him, he was, the Rams, they lost out in the playoffs, and then all of a sudden he's shipped off, not too far this time from last year. Sean McVay blames him for everything that's gone on there. My quarterback's not good enough. It's basically all Jared Goff's fault. He ships him off to Detroit, which is not a well thought of place for players, maybe a graveyard amongst some players. He comes here, the fans don't particularly want him. They're all missing Stafford, who's gone. He starts off the season. He's everything that we feared he might be, with the fumbles, the short passes, the interceptions. And, he's at his utter lowest point possible. But, amongst all this, Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell never for once lost faith in him. I remember when Dan Campbell came out and challenged him to be better, but he never once turned around and said, "You're garbage, you're not good enough." He believed in him and trusted him. And you saw that as the season went on. It was kind of a microcosm for a lot of players last year. Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes have shown faith to a lot of players who other teams wouldn't give a second glance at. And these players are coming back and they're repaying the faith shown in them. That's the culture that we're building. No matter what your past is, it's what you do now that you're based on. And you saw, that game-winning pass against Minnesota is what changed his season, when he realized that, hey, actually, I can lead a game-winning drive. I can win without Sean McVay. I don't need to put up with all this that's gone on. I can be my own guy, and I'm going to repay the faith you've seen in these guys. And down the stretch, he's played really well. Yes, there's still been a few errors there, but for the most part, he's been good, Jared Goff. He's been protected well. He's been throwing well. He's been mixing the plays up. We've been running it better. So the offense looks a lot more stable now that we're getting some of the injured guys back, now that they're getting a bit of continuity in there. And I think that, that's only going to keep getting better. I think we're at a point now where he's out from under McVay's shadow. And I think he's like, I'm done with them now. I'm ready to go on and make my own future. So I'm quite happy for us to go into next year with him and see if he can continue to prove the doubters wrong, because that's the modus operandi of this team. We're proving the doubters wrong. Everyone says we're rubbish, we can't win games, we're busted, etc. We're proving them wrong. And I fully believe that, Goff could well be going the same way. He might not, but we've only got him for 12 more months if it doesn't go right. It's not like it's going to put the rebuild at risk or anything. I think we've got all to gain from this. And, hopefully, I know we might talk about it in a bit, but the game tonight, I'm praying to God the Rams lose, because I think that's the next story of his redemption. He'll see his old team, who have failed with a class superstar team of players, and he'll realize that it wasn't all on him. Sean McVay was a big part of the reason why that team have failed and continue to struggle, because his schemes get found out. So I'm hoping they lose, and that'll just be the next burgeoning sort of, blow to, increasing of Goff's confidence, because he'll see that it wasn't his fault and he can be successful here. So I look forward to that, but the other two can go. We need some form of depth in there, but the other two can go. If Blau can't supplant Boyle, he doesn't deserve to be here. Boyle, I know I was a defender of him, but I just think he's not really a great backup. I think we can do better for a cheap vetmin deal somewhere. Yeah, the other two can go.
Yeah, Boyle's dog shit. Boyle won't look out of place in the CFL, the XFL, the USFL. He belongs anywhere that doesn't start with an N, because his college career was downright crappy and terrible. It's a fluke they made it to pros, and the laser arm just doesn't exist. So he can get in the bin. Blau, no one believes in him. That's why he didn't see the field. We'll call him for him at times in pure desperation, but he's a good clipboard guy. But other than that, no one cared about playing him. He never stood a chance of seeing the field ever. He's gone too. Let's see what Stephen Montez has. We protected that guy in the practice squad like every week of the season, and we never once elevated him, even with injuries, which I found odd. Even if he's a reserve team runner, that he wasn't the QB3 in any game. I know him from Colorado. He's a big 6'4" guy with a laser, but he's a bit erratic. Goff, I didn't want the guy here. like you say, big contract. I'm just hoping he'd just be a bridge. First 8 games, of course his percentage was high. It was only throwing 5-yard passes. I'd have a high percentage only throwing 3 to 5 yard checkdowns for 8 weeks. That makes anyone look good. But I think after like week 10, he's obviously dealt with the injury, but down the line, with the games where Campbell was calling the plays, I think in 5 games, he was like 11 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. Like he looked far better. It helped bringing in Reynolds. The receivers look better. I'm fine with him next year. Like I said, there's no doubt about it. We have to accept that he's the starter next year. We're tied to him financially for another year, which obviously rings, but also his play warrants it. If he can start this year like he's ended, if he can start next year like he's ended this year and get rid of those crappy fumbles, that was the most frustrating thing. Like anytime he got touched in the pocket, he coughed the ball up. That was the most frustrating thing for me. If he can get over the fumbles, have a bit more pocket presence, and have extra weapons around him next year, there's no reason why the Lions, I'm setting my base at like 6-7 wins, which would be a vast improvement. If you gave me 3 extra wins next year, I'd be very happy. Jared Goff is a long-term future. I don't want that because he's not a mobile quarterback and you need a mobile quarterback in his league. So I want someone next year to sit underneath him and learn because his style is just not right for the future football, like the pocket presence. But for next year, I'm totally fine. And I think he could put really big numbers. I think he could have a really good year next year. Whether we win or we lose, I think he will have got the monkey off his back. People have warmed to him here now. He's also accepted the fact that he's staying here. Did Jared Goff want to come to Detroit? Did he bollocks? He didn't want to be here, did he? He was part of that trade shipped off. Is he glad to see the back of Sean McVay, that little power-hungry, dwarfy arsehole? Of course he is. Like I say, he's glad to have Dan Campbell. Get him a good offensive coordinator that he actually likes, because he didn't like Anthony Lynn. I don't think Anthony Lynn liked him either. But they could get a nice little trifecta going between head coach, quarterback, strong offensive line. There's no reason that he can't succeed here next year.
Yeah, I think he can definitely succeed here next year. And the thing is, so the dead cap if we cut him after next season is $10 million. If he has a good year and renegotiates his deal so that it's a cap hit of 15, under 20 million, and he's had a good year, and he's had a good enough year so the Lions aren't in position to get the quarterback of the future without moving up and giving up trade capital, it's got to be in the conversation that you don't move up and that you give Goff one more year to kind of put it down the road again while you bolster the rest of the offense, especially if the drafting is good. You know, if the GM actually, knocks it out of the park again, it gives you confidence that you can do that again and again and again, and then you can run with someone like Goff because the team around him is going to be good. Moving up and losing trade capital when you're good at drafting doesn't sound like a good idea to me. So it's a really kind of odd situation where I almost don't want Goff to be good. Like I do, because I want us to win. And I want it to be like, let's just run with this guy and we'll have lots of assets to go forward. But in my soul, I kind of say, like with Ryan, that because he's not a mobile quarterback, it does limit your ceiling just a little bit. And, even if you get success for the odd year here or there, that sustained success is not going to be achieved by this guy. I worry about that he has a good year and that we somewhat commit to him. Like, right now, I don't want that. But I said 2 months ago, cut him, and I'm wrong. So who's to say that take is not completely proven wrong 12 months from now? But
well, the best rookie in this QB class has not been a mobile quarterback.
But I could have told you that was going to be the case before the season started.
It depends how you set your team up. I was of the same thing. I like my dual threat quarterbacks more, but Goff is set up to do well here if he's got a good offensive line there. And I think that in the league in general, you can still do it with a pocket passer.
Absolutely. And pocket passers get better through their second and third contracts as well. There's absolutely that aspect of things too. Anyway, let's move on to the defensive side of the ball, starting off with the interior defensive line. Major contributors this year, Michael Brockers, Nick Williams, Ali McNeil, Levi Onwuzurike, and John Penasini. I did put Jashawn Cornell, but I'm not sure why. All in all, boys from this group, it was another lot of up and down. Onzarike flattered to deceive. We knew that he was a project, that actually he was apparently going to be redshirted through the season, but had to be hurried into the lineup perhaps a bit before he was ready, and that showed somewhat. McNeil absolutely met expectations for me. I thought that coming in, I was high on him, and he delivered. He wasn't the polished, finished article. We were never expecting him to be in the third count. John Penasini, I thought, did really, really well, considering he was drafted in the 6th round, and him and Aleem look like they're about on a level right now, and I expect Aleem to distance himself in the coming years, but interchangeably, I thought they did great. My only worry was that they didn't play together pretty much at all, which was frustrating. Brockers, Williams had flashes where he was fine. Brockers was consistently meh, I think. He perhaps showed leadership and showed these youngsters how to be a pro, but I never really saw him jump off the page. All in all, I mean, I got to be a little disappointed by this team, and yet we were nowhere near as bad against the run as we have been in previous years, I don't think. You know, we were torched by Seattle in week 60, but barring that, I don't remember Aaron Jones running all over us like he has done in recent years. I don't remember, Javonte Williams had a good day against us for Denver, but that was down the stretch of that game, and he had Melvin Gordon to back him up, who had basically as good a day as well. The running defense was so bad that this was an improvement. But I was hoping for more. Ryan, what do you think, man?
I didn't expect much from this group at all. I thought we would be edging in McNeil and Levi. As you mentioned, Levi, it felt like they played him out of necessity, even though they didn't want him to. They wanted to sit in most of the year, I think, and get him to learn. But there were times where him and McNeil did go in as a pair, pretty good against the run. Like say, they can be, if they wanted to be, they could be fairly stout, formidable run defense if they wanted to. Nick Williams, for all the shit off the field, like no one likes the guy, like I say, but he had the odd play. Like I say, he had the odd good tackle for loss. Like he was able to get some penetration. When he looked asked, when he actually looked up for it, he showed those flashes there, like pretty good. Aleem McNeil, I think he's a little bit further ahead where Penasini was at the end of his first rookie year, and I expect that gap to widen over the next year. I think in the next year or two, with depth, but I don't know. Penasini may want a change of scenery, but right now I feel like there's good depth there. Brockers, as you mentioned, some weeks healthy scratch, capital and money. You get the let him leadership. Like I don't care about the locker room stuff like that. That doesn't interest me. So if he has to leave, I want him to move on. I just grant it. I'd get rid of him. Like you say, I expect next year him to see the field even less because next year we need to throw Levi in. I want to see Levi sink or swim. So next year I expect him to play a lot more. Like I said, you didn't mention Cornell. I'm surprised the guy even made the team. Let's be honest. Rookie year, then gets done with PEDs. Like, wash the hands of that guy. Didn't need to be around. Very year, like I said, I didn't expect much from defensive interior line. Weren't that bad against the run as we were in previous years. We were able to bottle some sides up when we were playing 2 nose tackles. But as Ant showed, lots of frustration. We were run-heavy teams and we did not put the right personnel out there. We did not see enough of Penasina. We did not see enough of Aleem McNeil against run-heavy fronts. And there were teams that gashed us because we didn't put those personnel out there when we should have done. So we should have seen more of these guys. And I expect next year their snap counts will tick up immensely.
I'm just thankful to God that we're never, ever, 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 ever going to see a starting inside defensive line of Michael Brockers and Wick Williams again. Absolutely. If I say his name properly, he comes along and shouts at me. So I've got to use it different. But they're the pair of them have been atrocious. I mean, I'm not going to hold it against Brockers as much, but the other one, we paid this guy $10 million over 2 years when his previous biggest contract was just over $1 million. So, it's another one of Bob Quinn's horrendously bad contracts. We've thankfully got off the books now, and I'm really going to hold it against them if they bring him back because he ain't it. He's stalling the progress of the rookies. Get him out of there. Leave Brockers in. Start using Aleem more. You saw towards the end of the year and been screaming it from Blue Moon. Aleem McNeil is not just a damn nose tackle. He is also a defensive tackle just in general. He can play at 3-tech. He can play at 2-tech. Put him where you want. The guy makes a difference. So you saw it in the last game against Green Bay. He swallowed up Dillon plenty of times before he even got to the line of scrimmage. His pressure rate on QBs was surprisingly a bit better than I thought, especially as the season went on. He did register a few sacks. He got quite a few pressures on the quarterback. And that was one of the things in my analysis I said he wasn't as good at, but he did contribute in that aspect of the game as well. So he needs to play a lot more snaps this year coming up. Obviously, Levi, like Ryan says, does need to prove it. Hopefully he's healthy for the start of next year. And then we can start next year with Brockers in there. We can start with McNeil in. We can have Levi on the edge as well. And hopefully we can get the production out of them that we were hoping we'd see in glimpses this year. But McNeil has solidified himself as a starting guy in there. And you just need to put him in for as many snaps as you can, because he's shown himself worthy of it. He's great against the run. He's had he's had a bit of a testing start to the year, but he's grown noticeably better as he gets along. Brockers, I would still keep in there for the veteran presence. I believe he has a lot to offer, but as I've said in a lot of other podcasts, I don't blame the D-line as much as some do for their issues, because we've had such a bad secondary issue. We've kind of left them to it. This isn't a sort of situation with the 49ers where you can leave your front four to go and do what you want and just look after the rest of the field. These guys do need a little bit of help, and they've not had it because we've been protecting our secondary. We don't blitz the linebackers often. We don't bring the safeties up high. It's hard for these guys, especially when they're rookies or not elite guys on the D-line, to do all the work themselves. So, I do expect to see it get better next year. I do expect us to see us put in some significant draft capital into the secondary and the linebacker core to be able to help the rookies up front. And I think we'll see a lot more of a balanced defense this year when it comes to rushing the passer. But I like the development I've seen from Aleem. I still think Brockers is a good leader in there who they're going to learn off. Levi, as has already been said, it's kind of a red shirt year for him. He's been hampered by injury. Hopefully we see the real him next season. And hopefully we'll maybe get a little bit more depth in there to help them. But, the main pain in the neck is gone, thankfully, unless they really blunder and bring him back, which would be terrible.
Wouldn't be a fan of that personally. Let's move on to edge/outside linebacker. You've got the Aquara brothers, Trey Flowers, Charles Harris, Austin Bryant, Rashad Berry, and Jesse Lemonnier. And from this group, big things were expected of Trey Flowers, one of the highest paid players in the position in the entire NFL, never mind one of the highest at the Lions, if not the highest, and newly paid Romeo Aquara. And I'm just trying to find out now exactly where he's at with this. But so Aquara played just over 3 games before getting injured. In that time, he was one of the highest players in the NFL in terms of his number of pressures. He had 16 before he went down for the year. If I extrapolate that out, he would have had something like 87 pressures on the year. That would have been second in the NFL. So if he can come back and play at that sort of rate, that would be incredible. Now we know he's got an Achilles problem, and that that affects the explosion off the line. So fingers crossed for him that isn't a problem. Obviously, his brother started off slow, but came on really, really well down the stretch. Actually, and Julian was our 4th ranked player on defense for PFF. Only 361 snaps, but his pressure rate, his coverage grade, very, very good. So that's encouraging. You have a look at Charles Harris. I mean, he's potentially the breakout player of the year, and we'll come on to awards later, but the guy was a bust. He was a bust. Like, people were saying, he could have busted out of the league, but he basically had at this point, and he's completely turned his career around. 52 pressures on the year is outstanding, considering that he'd been kind of reduced to a designated pass rusher role before the season started, and he ended up with 871 snaps and still performed at a 68.7 grade. I mean, that's exceptional work. You have a look at some of the other players. In terms of the edge, you've got Austin Bryant, first season, completely healthy, and he did very well for most of the season. Now, his grade isn't that high, but he got 14 pressures on 436 snaps. the guy's basically a rookie at this point, even though he's in year 3. He's barely played, and that represented a good return coming up against some of the stronger offensive lines in the league. Rashad Berry, Jesse Lemonnier, both taken off the street, and they've come in and performed okay. Like, from these replacement level guys, you've got to hope for replacement level play, and I think they probably did better than that. And, they weren't game breaking by any stretch, but some of the sacks they had, Jesse Lemonnier, especially, I think it was against.
He got Jordan Love and he got Kyler Murray.
Maybe it was the Murray sack I was thinking of. He got half a sack in between him and Harris. They both hit the guy at the same time.
That was really, Murray, I think. Yeah. And then he got Love on his own.
There we go. Ant, what do you make of this group as a whole?
Again, I'm probably a bit more optimistic than some others about what I've seen. Again, I think because the balance of the defense this year, how it's been, I think the edges have been at a disadvantage from the start. But I mean, obviously Charles Harris, I've hyped on about him all year on Twitter. I think maybe the third or fourth game in, I was already demanding he get a new contract. I mean, this is just the epitome of what Dan Campbell is about. It's not about your past. It's not about how you are. It's about how you come in and how you conduct yourself, how you play on the field. And he's given Charles Harris a chance that no one else was going to. And he's had an incredible year. Not just in the pass rush, in run blocking, he's been really good as well. I read somewhere he's one of the better run blocking edges that there's been this year. You've seen him hunting down running backs, really affecting plays, getting the sacks. What was it, 4 consecutive games he got sacks in, which a Lions edge rusher hasn't done in God knows how long. I think it tied a record from ages ago. And, he just has found a home here. He's found the right scheme here. And I'm praying to absolute God that we can pay him to stay here, because it's one thing player having talent, but it's another thing schematically fitting into a system. And we know he fits our system here. He's what Aaron Glenn wants. He's useful in the packages that he comes up with. And, he's earned the right to be here. And that's what you want to do. If you're going to put these 1-year flyer deals out there, etc., you need to reward these guys with the longer term deals going forward. So I'm incredibly happy for him. He's been one of the biggest surprises all season. And I hope he gets his due with us and is here for a lot longer, because quite frankly, he's earned it. And that's all we can ask for. I mean, behind that, Julian, I know you lot are a lot more higher on him than I am. He had a good game against Green Bay, but at some point he's got to start, producing consistently. All you get from him is bits and bobs here and there, and not the highest level of stuff. He's had his injuries, but he's had his opportunities now as well, and he didn't get above his brother's sack count till 2 weeks before the end of the year. I know he's had injuries himself, but still, he's played a lot more.
5 sacks. Julian had 5 sacks and 21 pressures on 361 snaps.
Yeah, but not until a lot of that came late in the season.
But he's a young guy. He's going to improve through the year. He basically had an entire year out last year.
Eventually, he needs a good, consistent 12 months or a good, consistent season if you're going to stick with him. And he's not produced that so far. That isn't a lie. He just hasn't produced a proper season so far. And if you think you've got his brother coming back, you've got Harris who's possibly coming here on a deal. I mean, you could very well have an elite guy arriving from the draft. Opportunities are going to dry up very quickly. If one of Kayvon or Aiden ends up here, his opportunities are going to go right down the tube. So, I'm glad that what I saw at the end of the year, I'll give him his dues. He played really well. We said when they made the decision to bring them both back, him and Walker, to bring them back, did they have vote to prove for this season? Was it Walker? No.
Walker, no, Swift.
Swift, yeah. We said they've got bits to prove. Julian came back and proved it. He did what I asked of him, which was good. And hopefully he carries it on to next year. Bryant has done better than I think any of us thought he might. I think he's been a surprise revelation as a good depth piece on there. As we were chatting about earlier, you need depth pieces in your edge rotation, and he's figured that he could be one of those. I've taken a look at his sacks from this year. He's got some good moves in his arsenal, and he's been healthy. So, whilst we bemoan the pass rush this year and that it wasn't great, I think individually you've seen out the players that there is a lot there they can offer. And I think once we have a more balanced defense going forward, you'll see a lot better out of them. So, you know, like I say, the success story of the years in Edge. I think we've got some good depth there. It wasn't too bad a year, but you know, when Romeo comes back and that, I think it will be a hell of a lot better. And you know, we'll be doing well. And if one of the big guys comes from the draft, then Jesus, we could potentially have a very good pass rush next year.
See, I don't know. I don't know what Romeo we're going to get back. I do worry about a torn ACL of an Edge. Like, that is a position where you need the drive, you need the thrust, like say, from the position. So it's going to be very interesting to see, because I don't know if his rehab's going well. I don't know if he's going to be ready for the start of the season. I don't know if he's expected to get ready, or if he's going to miss the whole camp. So he's definitely going to have a slow start for next year. So there's going to be chances for his brother Julian next year to pick up where he left off. Like I said, as a now pure bull rush speed rusher, Julian Aquara looks fantastic. Like, as straight line speed off the edge, there's not many that can match it. Like I say, the technique needs a little work when he's kind of trying to work on guys that are able to, he's not able to get around. He's not bad in coverage, uses that big frame well, so he's able to pick up like tight ends. He's able to work in the slot when he needs to trap people across the field. Like I say, pretty sure he got a nice interception this year. So he had good splash players. I agree, I'd like to see consistency, but that's going to come with snaps. And is he going to get the snap count next year? Because I fully expect us to bring in a big name edge rusher next year, whether it's in the first or the end or the second. Charles Harris, really nice breakout year. Like I say, he had that 5-6 week where he went on a bit of a wrecking path. His first half of the year against the run wasn't very good, but the second half of the year, he certainly worked on that. He got better at shedding blocks, which was good. Like I say, he was able to contain the edge, hold the edge a little bit. Now, I want to bring him back, but I'm not having him take the piss. He ain't holding us to ransom. He's not getting starter money. He's going to get a 2-year depth deal. If he thinks he's going to hold out for big money, I will gladly let the guy walk. He can try and get it somewhere else, because I think he will probably try ask for more than he's worth. But if we're able to come to some sort of agreement that keeps him here for a year or two, I'm more than happy, because he proved that he offers a substantial edge win rate. Like I say, the pressures were good for the limited snaps he played, so he's able to pick up relief when someone goes down. Lamonier Berry came off the streets. I can send them back to the streets. They won't be missed from me. Austin Bryant, I've never liked him. I didn't want to keep him at all before this year. Right now, mixed emotions. If we don't bring him back, don't really care. If we do, fair enough. Like you say, he got the odd sack. But for me, zero consistency. Probably feels like a flash in the pan year. But we need some serious, like you say, at number 2 next year. Realistically, the odds are looking like we're going to bring in an edge rusher. I think we're probably going to go for Kayvon or Hutchinson. If you can get an acquirer back that even comes back at 70% healthy just for next year, 2 like bookend defensive ends like that, I feel good about where we're looking. That could be a serious tandem, which we've not had for quite a while.
Can you imagine in sub packages having a 4-man front of Aquara, Kayvon, and Harris, or Hutchinson and Harris? Like,
just send everyone
3rd and long, 3rd and 10. Like, that sounds so good to me, because I think that Romeo Aquara, and either Hutch or Kayvon have the ability to play inside in sub packages. That just makes me so excited. The rest of them, I don't mind. Charles Harris, I think, should be a prime candidate for realising the situation he has is very good here for his skill set, that we're making the most of him, and that he should be taking a team-friendly deal. But if he doesn't want to, he has earned the right to go and get paid. So, whatever he wants to do is fine. I want him to stay. But it's up to him now.
Exactly. We don't know what he's going to ask for. I would be of the thing that he's performed well this year. I think he will, realise the faith that has been put in him. And I think that he will take that into account when it comes to the contract demands. I think he'll stay team friendly. He doesn't strike me as the guy who's going to try and rinse us for a ton of money after one good year, after we've saved him from purgatory. I just think that's the kind of guy Campbell brings in. He's going to bring in a guy who'll do the best for himself as much as he can, but he will do it for the team as well, because he owes this team a hell of a lot now.
Yeah, absolutely right. Let's move on to the inside linebackers, we start off with the presumptive linebacker one from the preseason, Jamie Collins. Alex Anzalone as well, the new draft pick, Derek Barnes, Jalen Roos-Mabin, Michael Pittman.
Ron Hamilton.
Anthony Pittman, thank you very much. Tavonte Beckett, Sean Dion Hamilton, Josh Woods, the major contributors. Let's go straight to Ant. What did you see from this group? Obviously, Collins flamed out pretty quickly, and it seemed like the group improved for that.
I still saw a lot of bad, though. A lot more bad than good. That is certainly an area of need for us this season. I mean, Jamie Collins, us carting him off was, that was a great decision, and it was a wonderful decision to see. Matt Patricia would have put up with the laziness that he exhibited in those first few games, but Dan Campbell didn't. He saw that he was no good, and he realized that, you know what, they might not be as good technically, but there are younger guys here who will bust their ass open for an opportunity here. And he carted him off. And one, Anzalone looked better. And then Reeves-Mabin, I mean, he's been a perennial special teamer. But remember, not that long after Campbell came here last year, him and Holmes both singled him out as a player who looked a really good football player, I think was the term they used. And we all sort of went, huh? He's only ever played special teams. I don't know what you're seeing. But the fact is, he came in and he did really well because we were all clamoring for Barnes to get the start maybe right away. I think everyone thought, right, put Barnes in with Anzalone and let him go. And when Reeves-Mabin went in, a lot of people were like, huh. But he repaid the faith there. I showed the other day, he took a lot of snaps in there. His coverage, it wasn't too bad. There are a few mistakes in here, but this is a guy who's starting games really for the first time. There are going to be growing pains there, but in terms of the job he did, given that he was given the green dot at times, so he had leadership responsibility back there. I think he did remarkably well in the situation. And I think that, he certainly earned an opportunity to come back next year and, get the starting spot for good. So in terms of the good, JRM is certainly a positive on there. Anzalone's, I put this up on Twitter today. I don't know what the hell to do with him. He had a really bad start to the year, but we could sort of attribute that to Collins. When he was gone, he looked a lot better. He looked a lot more fluid. He sort of led the defense from the front, great with tackling and that, but 22% missed tackle rate in it. That's high. That's the highest in the league of guys who've played significant snaps. I think he's about 20th overall, but only one guy in front of him in that 19 has played more than 200 snaps. He's played about 850, and he's still at a 22% missed tackle rating, which is poor. His coverage has not been great. All aspects of his game by PFF, he was below 50 for everything. 3 of them, I think it was his coverage, his run blocking, and his overall defensive grade. We're down at about 35. It's been a very poor year statistically for him. And I know I don't go by PFF and stats. I go by the eye test, and I think the eye test shows that he's done better than his grades show, but he's in that defense to be a leader and to lead by example. And I just don't know whether he has the skill set and the talent level to continue in that fashion. It's a very tough one, but and I take his situation into circumstance. It's not an easy situation to be jettisoned into, and he's performed admirably in there. So I'm really, really struggling as to know what to do with him going forward. Barnes has flashed, but he is a 4th round guy. He is going to take time to get better. He's not been utilized properly. He is a blitzing linebacker who gets into the backfield and causes havoc. He's not been used as such. He's been used more in coverage, been a lot of sort of run defense, but him staying on the defensive side to do it, not getting into the backfield, and he's struggled in some areas, but he's also flashed. He has shown you that when you do give him that liability, that ability to go out there, express himself more, and to put more pressure on quarterbacks and running backs, he's made some good plays, but he is a project. So at the minute, our linebacker core stands at one potential starter in Reeves-Mabin, one maybe good vet guy in Anzalone, and a project. And we need a lot more going forward. The guys behind that, Dion Hamilton's been injured all year, so you can't really make much of a thing on him. And Pittman, has been sort of in and out. He's made some good plays, but again, he's not an answer there as a starter or as a high-level depth piece. We need at least 2 guys, I think, going into this year from the draft, 2 high-level guys or a free agent to come in and really, put them with Barnes, put them with JRM, and it will be a lot better. But I was quite disappointed when the run games stuffed us. It went through the middle of the field. It went through them. The tackling was poor on a lot of occasions, and it needs to get a lot better.
Yeah, this is the worst group on the team, inside linebackers. I think it's the worst position we have. Jamie Collins, I was so glad to see him go. He didn't give a shit about being here. He just wasn't interested. So we binned him off. Anzalone, I like him, but he's a liability. Like, does miss tackles. One in 5 tackles he misses. That is like this Lions team again missed the most tackles in the entire league for the season. And you can put a lot of that on. It's the linebackers. The linebackers missed a hell of a lot of tackles. JRM, he came up big at end of season. I think he forced 2 fumbles, recovered one. So when he was called upon, he showed flashes. Like I say, he was able to make things happen. He was really key in some of those victories. He came on a lot this year from being a primary special teamer. He got a bit more of an advanced role, which I think he welcomed with open arms. He could probably start next year with a green dot because I'm not bringing Anzalone back. His ceiling is at average. Like I say, just let him move on. We have to draft a guy. I am penciling in a linebacker at the end of the first round now. We need someone that's got some balls to stand up and lead that defense. Derek Barnes, he ain't ready yet, is he? Like we thought he was going to start this year, he ain't. In coverage, he got picked on, looked a total liability. He was not able to stick with guys moving across the field. He got picked on, gave up the odd touchdown in receiving. So he was, but against the run, looked pretty good. Like he was a key guy in beating Minnesota because he stuffed Madison on that 2-point conversion at the goal line. Huge tackle. He's a brick wall when you try and meet him in the hole, and he's good at getting after the quarterback because he's got that pursuit speed side to side. So there are aspects to his game, but he's a long way from being ready to work on. But there's aspects there of Derek Barnes' game. Pittman, Woods, nah, I don't think any of them will be here. So inside linebackers, it needs a hell of a lot of work. It needs a total revamp. Other than Barnes and JRM, I can't see anyone. Sean Dane Hamilton, people were bigging him before the start of the year. Pretty much went in IR the first week at camp. Never heard of him since. Who knows?
I don't think it needs a big revamp. I think it needs a high-profile starter, and I think that completely changes the room. I think if you get a high-profile guy in free agency or someone at the back end of the first who starts, running, we know that, rookie linebackers tend to struggle. So I think that doing it through the draft is putting you on a hiding to nothing of, one guy this recent season exempted from that, but other first-round linebackers have really struggled in their rookie seasons. So, not every linebacker is going to come in and be Micah Parsons. I mean, what is the first time in a long time that a rookie first-round defensive player might be Defensive Player of the Year? Like a long time. So we'll see what happens on that. But if you can get a high-profile starter at linebacker, having Barnes and JRM rotate in the other spot, or just having one linebacker in your sub-packages, I think that completely changes that route. So we'll see what happens with it. Collins, just so glad to see him gone. I wouldn't mind seeing Anzalone return at vet minimum as linebacker 3, linebacker 4. That would be fine. He shows the leadership. He can instill the culture. He can teach people how to do it. And he can come in and be a kind of high floor, low ceiling guy, and that's fine. If he's back, I don't want him to be the starter. That's where I'm at with him, and he's the only really big question because JRM's got to come back. I mean, what he can do on special teams and what he showed in his limited snaps, and he's basically a rookie on defense. Like, he hasn't been given the chance, and he flashed big time. Like, he got 5 pressures in his last 4 games from the inside linebacker position. He got 3 against Arizona. Like,
a few battered passes as well.
Yeah, absolutely. At the line, he was an absolute menace. He's got great instincts. So, that's I think what they meant about great football player is just that he's got a bit of something upstairs, and I want to see him come back and develop that. I really think that can happen. Anyway, let's move on. Cornerbacks. We've got cornerbacks, safeties, special teamers, and then we're going to quickly talk about the awards that we're going to do next week, and that'll be us. So, cornerbacks. Cornerback 1 to start with was going to be Jeff Okuda. We've also got Amani Oruwariye, Ife Melifonwu, the rookie, and then you've got the undrafted free agents, Jerry Jacobs and AJ Parker. You've also got Bobby Price, Mark Gilbert, and then the converted safety Will Harris down the stretch. Let's go for Ryan to start off. How did you feel about this cornerback room, man? It was depleted majorly early and came to play.
Yeah, before everyone got hurt, it didn't look great. No one had any expectation for Okuda because the rookie year wasn't great. Like I say, his season ended early. Like I say, I don't know. Most people have already written him off. I don't think his future lies at cornerback. I will try him at safety next year. I will try and move the guy around to try resurrect his career because this is it. Next year, if he don't have a big year, he is gone. He is cut or he's traded. They will not give him more time than is necessary. Amani, oh God, the guy is so frustrating. Like tackling wise, he's not a good tackler. Coverage wise, he gets burned a lot. But instinct wise, he picks up crappy interceptions. He mops up awful throws, but he manages to get them at key times. Like that gets those momentum interceptions, like the one with off Kyler Murray. As an actual cornerback, I don't rate him very highly. From what I've seen of a few years, I don't think he's that good. But there's no way you can warrant getting rid of him. Like I would love to say I would get rid of him, but I can't now because he generates turnovers. He's shown like all the other traits. I don't think he's very good. Coverage ain't great, tackling non-existent half the time. Can be a liability, but we don't get any interceptions. So he's here next year, and he's cornerback 1 because Okuda probably won't be fit enough to start cornerback 1. So man is going to be the guy next year. AJ Parker, he's like a little pit bull in it. He tackles really well. He's got a few tackles for losses. He'll never play on the outside. I don't think he's that. He's going to be the nickel starter next year. I think he's going to be the inside guy. I think he looks good. I think Melifonwu he's got a job on his hands to beat him out. Like I say, Melifonwu has he's got the frame, he's got the size, he has the reputation. Struggled at times this year. Like I say, very rookie. Like I say, come back from injury, DK took him to the cleaners, but that's never easy. But then a week later, he made the great play in Devontae Adams, where he learned from a mistake, turned around, got a big pass breakup, so he showed some reflection a week later. There's certainly something to work with on the outside there. Maybe as a safety. He's a huge, big, long-range dude. I'm not quite sure where he fits in. Like I said, there's going to be some moving him around, but he looks like a big, strong guy. Jerry Jacobs, like you look at the kid and you think, well, he's too small. He ain't fast enough. He can't run with these guys in the NFL. But then he turns around and surprises you. He's got pretty strong hands. Like I say, he secures the tackle fairly well when he needs to be. Like I say, he's coming down line of scrimmage. Pretty good in press coverage. He's got a few nice pass breakups as well there. He's got the good instinct to get hands in when he sees that a ball's coming his way. A few tips. For me, he's the easily undrafted free agent of the year. There shouldn't even be any other nominations, to be honest. I think it's weird. If anyone doesn't see it's got to be him, he has locked up a role next year. Cornerback 2-3, but I expect him to see a lot more of the field this year because kids come out of nowhere and he's just staked a serious claim. Done really well. Will Harris, no comment, get rid of the dude. Total liability at cornerback and safety. Not worth the money. Dean Marlowe, didn't see enough of him as well. Are we doing defensive backs or are we just doing cornerbacks?
We're just doing corners for the moment.
Well, yeah. What's his face? Mark, who we brought from
Gilbert.
He looked okay. He could return as a depth player. That guy's lost nearly 3 years. The guy broke his hip, and he's just been working his way back for the last 18 months. And he had a crucial forced fumble, I think, one of the games. So he's shown flashes. So
he was our highest rated player on defense per PFF, only 47 snaps, but he was number 1 overall.
Yeah, the guy, everyone wrote him off because of injuries in his career, but if he can find a home here as a depth guy, I'm totally fine with that. The cornerback group is not as bad as people think. I think there's a lot of potential here. Maybe it needs a veteran addition. There's no veteran there. We need a bit of leadership. Nicole Coleman, bit of a bum, didn't show it. Never even barely saw the field. But I'd like to bring just one guy to help the young guys, because I think there's a lot of young faces there. Armani is the senior, and he's only like 24, 25, and he's the elder statesman of the group. So there could be someone there to gel them, but it doesn't need much work. They just need to stay healthy. If we stay all healthy next year, like there's certainly guys there that can make players. So I feel like there's a promising group playing cornerbacks.
I think they've just had a real baptism by fire this year because they're all young guys, and there's been very little veteran leadership in there. But what Jerry Jacobs and AJ Parker have done for me, they've completely redefined my expectations for what a cornerback should be and how they should develop. These two guys have come in as undrafted free agents. No one thought they were going to make the squad. No one had them making the 53. They worked their way onto there. They've worked incredibly hard. And when given a chance in the first team, yes, they've given up some plays, but they're coming up against, elite NFL wide receivers, and they're coming off the undrafted free agent market. They have made a lot more good plays than bad, and I mean a lot more good plays. They have come in and they've both potentially cemented themselves a starting position for next year. Now, I don't want to see another bloody veteran come here again after Coleman, after Worley, after Trufant. These lazy bums come here just for a bit of money and they don't provide anything for this team. I don't want to see any more vets. If we're going to bring a corner in, I want to see a starter bought here, a high-level starter bought here to bring, to really fire up these young guys and really unlock the potential in the lot of them. I don't want a veteran here babysitting them anymore because they've shown that they can do it without them. They've come into this team and they've progressed and got better without veterans in there. Amani's the biggest veteran in there, and but they've still got better. They don't need veteran leadership. Either that a starter comes in and supplants a lot of them and they develop, or you just carry on with them the way they're going at the minute. But I don't want to hear about this. It takes 2 or 3 years for these DBs to come good anymore. These two guys have come in and shown that if you work hard week on week, within a season, you can turn yourself into a starter caliber corner if you just put the grind in, you put the effort in, and you really go for it. And I think, guys like this really emphasize what New Detroit is about now. They will get the opportunity and they will work their asses off to earn that opportunity and to stay there. And even when they get there, they don't give up. Jerry, he follows us on Twitter. We watch him. He's one of the most critical guys ever. And you're like, Jesus, man, you've gone from undrafted free agent to starter in a year, and he's still looking for ways to get better and not resting on his laurels. And that's the mindset that all these players have now. And, they've just redefined it all for me. I love how these young guys have come through and how they're developing. Even Iffy, I know he's had his moments, but he's sort of come in and realized, oh, hang on, it doesn't matter that I'm a 4th round pick. All these undrafted free agent guys are threatening my position now. I have to get better. And I've seen some really good plays from him as well. I know a couple of weeks back, he got burnt on a touchdown pass, which went over his shoulder. He looked the wrong way or something. Against Green Bay, he altered his technique and he prevented a touchdown from the exact same sort of pass. You see how he's learning, how he's getting better. And before his injury, he was looking very good. So I like how these young guys are all in this room pushing one another to get better, because I just think they're going to elevate each other as they are. If we can find a really solid presence to come in there, a high level one to come in and help them, or another stud in the draft, I think, we're going to have a great secondary in terms of the corners going forward. I love the young guys we got in there, and I'm not putting a veteran in there to take snaps from them.
Just a brief aside, Biggerez just said that Rappaport's announced that Mike Mayock has been fired from the Raiders, which I guess is expected, but there we go.
Does that mean we're going to have boring drafts from them now?
Yeah, probably. On the cornerback room, I'm going to come out with a fairly hot take, I guess. I think this could be one of the best cornerback rooms in the nation next year. I think that this group of secondary players, not safeties, sorry, it depends what happens to the safety position, but the cornerbacks specifically, could be one of the best groups in the league. I think that Jerry Jacobs has the capability to be a high-end cornerback too. I've seen Oruwariye, who I was pretty merciless in having a go at halfway through this season, make massive strides. I think Melifonwu has the capacity to be a high-end cornerback 1. I have seen enough from him so far to say that his arc has been really steep. Like, he is learning so quickly to change behaviours which he's been learning throughout the whole of his life. And he's flipping it on a switch. If he can learn that quickly, by the end of next year, I expect him to be at a very high level. And if Okuda comes back and plays anywhere near where we thought he could when we drafted him, this room could be exceptional. AJ Parker doesn't need to improve much to already be a very good player in the slot. And then you've got Bobby Price, Mark Gilbert. Mark Gilbert has all the talent in the world. Like Ant said, his injury really set him back. And, in fact, no, sorry, I think Ryan said that, beg your pardon. But missed 3 years of his career at college level. But that rookie season was exceptional. He showed off what he could do, but he needed to get fit and healthy. And with that sort of injury, it takes years to get back. And we're going to be the beneficiaries of that. And then when it all goes to shit, you've still got Will Harris at cornerback 7. Fun times. Fun times. I really am positive about this group. Like, the ceiling of what this group can do is so high. I mean, the floor is really low. Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not going to pretend that is likely to happen. But I think it can. And I want to see it happen. With Aubrey Pleasant returning next year, as long as he doesn't get poached, which he could. And he should be. If people are switched on, if coaching staffs are switched on, if front offices know what they're doing, they'll be tapping him up.
And
but I don't think they will.
And if you think there's not even been any vets really, apart from Walker at safety, to come and help them either. They've been dealing with one of the worst safety rooms we've had in forever, and yet they still somehow managed to stand up and, prove themselves. And I think that's just the route I want to go now. Is I just want these young, hungry guys who are noticeably going to get better and keep pushing one another.
Yeah.
Like say, when Worley came, we thought, oh, he'll come in, be cornerback 1, and it's just like he was such a lazy bugger. And I'm done with those guys now. I want these guys here in future in all aspects.
Yeah. Right, let's move on to the last defensive group, the safeties. Started off this season with Tracy Walker and Will Harris, who obviously converted, as I said, to cornerback later on in the season. Dean Marlowe then took that starting spot later on when Will Harris converted. Moore and Elliott both contributed, and then Brady Breeze came on late on and actually contributed fairly well, I think. I don't know who went first last time, but what do you make of the safety group? Walker, does he get paid? I mean, has he done well enough?
I'll give the floor to Ryan to talk about Harris.
Harris is gone. Like, I won't even entertain returning him. A total liability at safety, and didn't show enough for me at corner. CJ Moore, key special teamer, like you say, and had those big plays at the end. I think he returns on the vet minimum because he's been around a while. He's one of those key guys on kickoffs and punt returns. So we like to keep those guys around. Brady Breeze, I loved the kid at Oregon. But I liked him a few years ago. Titans didn't use him enough, but later on in those last few games, he actually managed to get some snaps on the field. Looks pretty good. He's a reasonably good tackler. He's also got good ball skills, like you say. He got a few picks in college. I'd like to see more of him next year, so I'm definitely open to bringing him back there. Walker is only the second safety in Lions history to have 200-yard seasons with Benny Blades. So he had a good year. You could say it's a bit of redemption. Does he get paid? That depends what he asks for. Like, if he asks for too much money, you say hasta la vista, like bye Tracy. Like, if he thinks he wants to go chase the money, which for me, he's totally entitled to. He's like 27 now, he's entering his prime. If he thinks he wants more money, then I'm like, fine, go get it. Like, but the way he was speaking after the final game of the season, I think he's going to return, and I think he's willing to work with us a bit on the contract. He was using a lot of us. We're building something. Like that don't like obviously you're not going to say, well, yeah, I'm staying or I'm leaving, but it sounds like a guy that wants to return, and that's because of Aubrey, Pleasant, and Aaron Glenn. If they stay, I think he stays. I think they'll give him a 2-year deal. I'd give him $7-8 million a year. Like I say, I'd give him 50-60% guaranteed. I think he'd be happy with that. Like I say, I'm not going to tie myself heavily to him. But the safety room, it needs work. Marlowe didn't see enough to warrant bringing the guy back. Like I say, missed a few tackles. So it needs work. We definitely drafting one. Like I say, if it's not Hamilton, we're drafting a guy. Me and Ant like our guys, maybe even two. We're going to pick up someone. Now, if we don't go with Walker, there's some big names in free agency. I love Jesse Bates. If he don't get tagged, which I think he will, but then you've got like Jordan Whitehead, who I saw play for the Bucks really well. They might have not been wanting to bring him in. Yeah. Quandre Diggs. There's a lot of safety options on the market, and it's a very valuable position these days. So I think we can make a free agency splash, pick a guy up cheap, maybe. Let's say get a good guy in the draft, a project. Like I say, it's a good heavy class. So I think this is gonna. It's had a very down year as the position this year. Next year, I expect it to bounce back with totally fresh faces.
Safety can go from 0 to hero probably the quickest of all our positional groups. It's been atrocious this year, but there is a very clear path to fixing it quickly. Obviously, the first is trying to get a decent deal with Tracy Walker. I think we all wanted a good season out of him. I think we got a decent season out of him. And you have to take into account that he's the only senior guy, really, apart from ROTL, in that backfield. He's taken on a leadership role there, and he's still technically a rookie himself. He's not reached his first pro deal yet. So, I think the season he's given us has been good enough if we can create a good contract. So, and then we need to draft one. And people know my feelings on this. There is a guy in the draft who's going to transform your safety room instantly at the drop of a hat. I'd draft him, even if we're at second. I'd draft him because I think he's honestly a game changer at this level, especially with all the tons of talent we've got in that secondary, the youthful talent we've got there. To put in a potential generational guy with them, you're going to have something really special on your hands. As Ryan said, there's safeties down the draft who are also really good development projects. I'd double dip safety in this draft. I really would. Place them with Walker, and I think we've got a hell of a core on our hands. Marlowe, I'd bring back Marlowe on the right deal. I think he's had an underrated year. I know he's had a few tackling issues, but I think he's been a steady enough presence back there, and he will complement the young guys, hopefully the two guys we draft in and Walker. And you've got yourself a decent safety group there, but this year it's been atrocious. I don't like the way they're talking about Will Harris in terms of his attitude and his depth. We've not seen it on the pitch. With all the other guys, we've seen them noticeably get better on the pitch. With Will Harris, we've not seen him get noticeably better. If anything, we've seen him get worse. He did all right at corner for a couple of weeks, but we've got enough guys there. We don't need him there. We need him to ball out at safety, and he just simply hasn't. And that embarrassing touchdown he gave up against, the Packers, was it, where he slipped and let Adams in, just did it for me. He just got completely flummoxed by the route, slipped, and it was the easiest touchdown you'll ever see in your life. And I'm fed up of seeing it happen. So, I want an elite guy in there. I want an elite project in there. I've got my two guys in mind and bring Marlowe back. But this year it's been hard to watch. But Tracy, I'm very happy with what he's provided. I was critical about him a lot coming forward. He needed a great year, and I think he's had a really good year. He's done a really good job, and hopefully he'll be a leader on that defense going forward, and we need to find the money for him.
So I think that Marlowe has to be a must bring back. So it's all about the value. Of course, with all of the people we're talking about, it's about value, and I don't want to really be paying him more than $1.5–2 million. But if you can bring him back at near that minimum, Marlowe down the stretch was actually very productive at the times where he was seeing the majority of the snaps. In terms of tackling grade, he was the highest graded tackler on the team who played more than 100 snaps. And if you have a look at tackling grade through the season, he had tackling grades of 83, 24, 80, 61, 81, 77, 88, 83, 44, 84, 81, 83, 82. The guy had one or two bad games, but otherwise was exceptional at tackling. His missed tackle rate was 6% or something like that. Like, you don't see that very often. Now, a couple of his missed tackles were high-profile misses, which is why we remember them, but he was very consistent at actually wrapping up well and taking his man down. Tackling is only half the story. I mean, a good safety hopefully doesn't tackle very much because your linebackers are sweeping up. What you need is coverage ability. That's where he really improved down the stretch. Now, all he's done is show me enough to say that he's got to come back. But I don't want him to start. I still want him to be that safety 3. But I think he's shown me enough that if he has to come in relief, if he has to be that third safety, he's absolutely capable of that. It's the most snaps he's played in the last 3 years. And I think he's shown me enough. Walker, I want to pay him. I really do want to pay him. But like Ryan, if he wants paying, if he wants really paying, I don't want him. Like, this team can't be built off the back of people who want to chase the money. They're fighting for each other to make everyone else better. And that sometimes does mean taking team-friendly deals. And if you don't, then we'll build with someone else, thanks. So I love the guy. I love his attitude, the way he speaks, the way he thinks about the game. I really want him here. But it's in the balance, shall we say. I don't have any more thoughts about Moore and Elliott and Breeze. I'm with Ant. I think there's a very clear route to making this group better quickly. And I think safety is one of those positions that translates quite well to the NFL from college. So, there's the ability to do that, but also there's some really high-profile guys in free agency that you can go after if you don't bring Walker back. So I think we should be good come what may in that position. Let's quickly finish off with special teamers. We've got Jack Fox, Austin Siebert, and why have I forgotten Patterson's first name?
Riley.
Thank you very much. Fox, obviously, MVP of the team. We'll get on to actually who's the MVP later. But, like, in terms of how he makes the fans feel about him, he increased his punting average on last year, where he broke the record for the NFL. Or he was second all-time in the NFL, second gross punting average, and he actually beat that. I mean, what more can you say about the guy? His throwing is exceptional too, so he's a real weapon in special teams. Siebert came in after, relieving Ryan Santoso and kicked it very, very well. We thought we'd found potentially our kicker of the future. He then goes on IR, we pick up Patterson, and he misses one kick down the stretch the rest of the season. And actually, I don't think this is a camp battle. I think Patterson's won the job right now. I wouldn't bring Siebert back. I wouldn't have a camp battle. He's the guy for me. You've got other guys who really contributed on special teams as well. I think Brock Wright was potentially the highest graded special teamer per PFF. A few other, really, Jalen Rees-Mabin, who actually didn't play that much in special teams, I don't think. In terms of kicks, I think the offensive line did very well when it came to field goals. The blocking was obviously very good when it came to punts. I don't think we had one blocked all year. So, all in all, it was a really solid performance by this unit, and I think Dave Phipp has a lot to shout about with this group. And what do you make of the special teams?
I think they've shown that, I think they've justified the decision to camp Prater and Mulback last year. Not that I wanted either of them to go, but Prater is getting older. And by the time we're competing, he might be too old and missing too many clutch kicks there. And we needed to sort the kicker situation. And as we saw in the first half of the season, you don't want a camp battle for kicker where you're bringing in anyone and everyone, because it wasn't great at all. But in finding Riley Patterson, potentially we have our guy for the future now. And if he is our guy for the future, then we're going to have a young guy who's going to keep getting better, and he's going to be able to come up clutch for us in those situations where possibly, hopefully, postseason is on the horizon when we really need them. And, it justifies the decision to get rid of the older kicker who might not be able to do it for us by then. So Riley's been good. Siebert, I guess they will have a camp battle. But, we can save $1 million by cutting Siebert next year. And if they're looking for little bits on the roster to eke some money out, I definitely wouldn't expect both of them to stay if you can save $1 million as well. So we'll see. But, may the best man win. Siebert didn't do anything wrong. He did all right. So hopefully if these two really work each other hard, we'll get a top quality guy out of it there. Fox is Fox. We'll bring him back. He's a protected free agent, so only we can offer him a deal. So there's going to be no worry about anyone sniffing after him unless, for some unfathomable reason, we don't pay him. Return game's all right. Raymond's in there, Godwin's in there. Godwin's done okay. He just needs to get rid of his fumble problem, which has been good. And then, Daly's been flawless all year. And I know you were worried particularly about that one, but he's not had a single botch snap all season. He's been absolutely perfect. And when you're replacing a franchise legend like Mulback, obviously, again, you were worried, would the quality of snaps suffer? No, I think they said he's not made a single error. There's not been any misplaced pass by him all season, and that's all you can ask for. So special teams have been good. We've been good at penning people in with Jack Fox. We've got our weapon, and we've got guys on the special teams who are capable of really penning a team in. And you saw that with the lack of points, with the sheer little amount of points we were giving up in the season. We made it really hard for teams to drive on us because we just hemmed them in and kept them locked up. So, great for special teams. And if we've sorted this out now, that's such a big win for our playoff ambitions in a few years. It really, really is.
I don't see there being any battle. Like I say, Seibert, let's say he didn't do anything wrong, but he's lost the starting job. Like I say, he's going to have some effort to bring it on. Kickers, they're tenner penny. They're walking off the street pretty much every week for a team. I'll cut Seibert for $1 million. $1 million spent better elsewhere. Daly, it was a shame to see Ulback go. Cut him on his birthday. Legend of the game, but eventually you've just got to get someone a bit more longevity in him, like say, like a new breed. Daly didn't make any issues. It's fine. I want to see more people work out as returning next year. We need to find that. We need the home run guy. We don't have that right now, like I say. So there's people next year that if they want to be here, they better start learning how to return some kicks and punts because they're going to have to become some valuable on special teams, like I say. So it's fine. Jack Fox, no issue. Special teams, he's fine. Dave Phipp didn't really have to do much. It was fine when what's-his-face Braden got himself sacked last year. Nothing's really changed. It's just been a flawless transition, really.
I think it's intriguing that we've probably got one of the best returners in college football in the Senior Bowl. We've got Velus Jr. on our team. He's returned for well over 2,000 yards in college, so don't be surprised if they do want a new returner, possibly a guy at receiver. He'd be a name you mention for sure because he's really good at returning the football, and we've got to look at him all week.
Yeah. Right, I'm going to reel through the awards that we're going to be giving out next week, just to get that done because we've been going for a while, so let's do that now. We've got a variety of awards going on next week, and if you want someone to be nominated for this award, please put a comment in the chats on Twitch or YouTube, or message us, tweet at us. Nominations are going to be open probably until this time on Wednesday, and then I'm going to lock it up and make the graphics and get the voting started. So we've got MVP. At the moment, I've penciled in Goff, Armani Oruwariye, Penei Sewell, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Charles Harris. Offensive Player of the Year nominations, I have Jared Goff, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sewell, Decker, and Swift. Defensive Player of the Year, I've got Charles Harris, Armani Oruwariye, Tracy Walker, Jerry Jacobs, and Aleem McNeil. Special Teams Player of the Year, I've got Jack Fox, Riley Patterson, Jason Kabinda, CJ Moore, and Brock Wright. Rookie of the Year, I've got Penei Sewell, Aleem McNeil, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jerry Jacobs, and AJ Parker. Undrafted Free Agent Player of the Year, Jerry Jacobs, AJ Parker, and Riley Patterson. Most Improved Player of the Year, this is restricted to current Lions who are on the roster last season. I have Halapoulivaati Vaitai, Jonah Jackson, Jalen Mabin, and Tracy Walker. Comeback Player of the Year, so that's open to any of the players who just made a big bounce from the previous season. We've got Jared Goff, Charles Harris, Tracy Walker, and Armani Oruwariye. Free Agent or Traded Player of the Year, Charles Harris, Jared Goff, Craig Reynolds, the other Reynolds. What's his bloody name?
Josh.
Thank you very much. Josh Reynolds and Jamal Williams. Coach of the Year, got Dan Campbell, Aaron Glenn, Aubrey Pleasant, Hank Fraley, Dave Phipp, and Ben Johnson. I could not restrict that to only 5 because all of them have had fantastic seasons in their own right. Man of the Year, meant to replicate the Walter Payton Man of the Year. Got Jason Kabinda, Jared Goff, Trey Flowers, and Jamal Williams. Play of the Year, few candidates here, and there's probably more that I've forgotten. A fake punt throw by Jack Fox to Bobby Price versus the LA Rams. Kennedy's 75-yard touchdown pass to Raymond versus Green Bay. And Amon-Ra St. Brown's walk-off touchdown catch versus Minnesota. Game of the Year, San Francisco Week 1, specifically for the comeback in the second half, which I think was perhaps the best we've played all year, maybe, in an isolated period. The win versus Minnesota in its entirety, likewise against Green Bay or Arizona. Fans Podcast Guest of the Year. So this is to be voted on by fans only, not by any of the Roar of the Lions guys. I've listed Glover Quinn, Jeremy Reisman, Luke G, Nick Baumgartner, Jeff Risdon, and Jason Kabinda, who I think was just after we did awards last year, so counts in this season. Fans Player of the Year, so again, fan vote only. So far, I've had nominated from Twitter Amani Oruwariye, Jack Fox, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jared Goff, and Aline McNeil. And Fans Moment of the Year, again, a fan-only awards. MCDC's first press conference, the win over Minnesota, the win over Green Bay, drafting Penei Sewell, or Penei Sewell's reaction in Aaron Donald's face versus the LA Rams. Those are all of the awards that we have. We're going to be making it a big event. I hope that you can join us for that. If you have any suggestions for extra awards or extra nominations for those awards, please do let me know. I'd love to hear what you have to say on that. Anything else that occurs, you guys, that I can update now that we've missed perhaps, or we could replace someone that you thought was perhaps undeserving of one of those awards that we can swap out?
No, I'll take a look at them during the week and see. It's a lot to go through, but it's going to be fun.
Not off my head, no.
All right, there we go. Anything more that you want to clear off? I think that we were potentially going to talk about the GM, but I think actually we're going to do a draftees review, and I think that he will fit in quite nicely there. So,
yeah, we've got plenty of time in the off season now to go through bits. So
yeah, and we've been going 3.5 hours now. So.
Exactly. I mean, in fairness, next week it's Dan Campbell's 1-year anniversary here. It was Brad Holmes' 3 days ago, and it's DC's in 3 days. So we can do the anniversaries for them.
Time for celebration. Right, our next episode, this time next week, Monday, 24th of January, it's the second annual Roar of the Lions Awards show. We are voting for the best of the Detroit Lions 2021 year. Don't forget to check out our Roar of the Lions College Football podcast. There's been some great stuff through this season. Been talking about the bowl games, college football playoffs, be that the FCS or the FBS, transfer portal stuff. That's all up there for you to go and have a look at. And it will be returning soon, talking about the NFL draft as much as we will be here on the main pod. 2, don't forget to find us on our socials, Roar of the Lions UK, YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. The Facebook group for worldwide fans, Detroit Lions Fans UK 1 Pride Worldwide. We are taking on a load of writers for the website, roarofthelionsuk.com. You can expect us to take a vastly increased focus on that with a lot of articles coming out soon. Please don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. If you can do that as well on Twitch, YouTube, it's going to give us a massive help in terms of what we can do here. So anything you can do, much appreciated on that. Just remains to me to thank my co-host and to Ryan, who obviously departed about halfway through as well. Many thanks to you guys for a great season. Can't wait for the award show. We'll see you next week. Let's go Lions, one pride.
One
Pride.